All right. Okay, welcome to the May 1st budget hearings. We kick off the legislative process for the budget. Obviously, a familiar face missing is Councilor Henderson, and he guided us with a steady hand for, I think, 11 straight budget years as budget chair. So we owe a debt of thanks and gratitude for Councilor Henderson for guidance through some very difficult, challenging times. He did a remarkable job, so thanks to him. So with that, I'll turn it over to the budget chair, to the finance director, and then we'll follow the usual process. We'll go through our presentations, and councilors can add to the add-delete list, and then we'll address those items at a later time if it comes up. So,
yes, sir.
Director, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. So today we are kicking off our budget review sessions for FY19. What I'll go over very briefly, but also very thoroughly, is what's all packaged in the FY19 recommended budget. So just starting out with the agenda, as far as the items that we'll go over today, which is the budget process and schedule, this overview, which will cover all of the operating funds, the agency appropriations, our non-operating funds, and then we'll talk a little bit about the projects for our other local option sales tax monies, as well as our T-SPOS funding. Also, what's on the agenda today is an update from our health benefits consultant, Shaw Hankins. They'll provide a healthcare update, sort of going over the options as far as the recommendations or what's in the budget as far as healthcare. And then we have one department presentation today that's on the schedule. It's the municipal court judge. And so he'll be here to make a brief presentation. So just discussing a little bit more about the budget process. The budget is submitted to council by the mayor no less than 60 days prior to the start of each fiscal year. It includes the operating and capital expenditures, which are accompanied by our expected revenues. It also includes a budget message from the mayor, which sort of details out any major policy changes, a general summary of the budget itself, and any other information that's deemed appropriate. We also have to make public by advertising in the newspaper hearings for public comment, as well as the budget and millage ordinances with related ordinances that must be approved by July 1. So as far as the schedule, this is the first session, the first of our budget review sessions. Like I said, we'll just go over a brief overview. Shaw Hankins will give an update, and we have one department presentation. May 8th and May 15th is nothing but department presentations. That meeting is scheduled to kick off immediately following our regular council meeting. And then we have on May 22nd our add-delete list. That is the only item on the agenda for May 22nd. It also is scheduled to kick off immediately following our regularly scheduled council meeting. So in June, we will publish notices in the newspaper for public comment. We'll have public hearings as it relates to our taxpayer Bill of Rights. And we'll also read and adopt our budget and millage ordinances. So as far as the FY19 operating funds in total, we have $273,838,508 in projected revenues. Our expenditures are $274,486,331, with the use of fund balance across our operating funds of $647,823. $540,298 of that fund balance use is in the general fund. Transportation Metro is using fund balance of $61,298, and then the Trade Center Fund is using fund balance of $46,227. The primary usage of the general fund balance is for our fourth year commitment, for fourth year of our BTW commitment. We are currently discussing options with the Housing Authority related to this payment, and possibly them purchasing city-owned property to help offset the payment. So it's adopted in the budget, but we are in talks with the Housing Authority, and that could possibly change. So So our FY19 assumptions, there is a slight decrease in the millage rate from FY18. Urban Service District 1 will have a total mills of 17.65 mills. Urban Service District number 2 is 11.67 mills, and Urban Service District number 4 is 10.77 mills. We are projecting a 2% increase in the digest with a 97% collection rate. And within this budget, there is no subsidy to the integrated waste or civic center fund. As far as there are subsidies for the E911 fund as well as the golf courses. The value of 1 mill as far as operating is $5,115,003. The value of 1 mill for debt service is $5,420,349. Included in this recommended budget is a COLA of 0.5% for active employees and 0.25% for retirees. This will be effective August of 2018. There's also a 1.5% pay increase for active full-time employees. This excludes elected officials, and this is for full-time employees that are on the payroll as of June 30th, 2018. This pay increase is also to be effective August of 2018. As far as health insurance, we are continuing our 70-30 split for our active participants. Here's just a summary of our millage rate by urban service district. As you can see, there are no changes in Urban Service District 1 as it relates to the 9 mill cap. The decrease in the millage is for debt service. FY18, the debt service rate was 0.60 mills, and for FY19, it would be 0.47 mills. So that is the only change in the millage for FY19. So this chart here is just an overview of our operating funds. As you can see, the general fund represents over 55% of our total operating budget. The other local option sales tax fund is second with 12.3%, while the paving fund and medical center fund rounds out the top 3 at 6% and 5.5% respectively. So here's just a look at our operating fund revenues, sort of where the money comes from. It depicts our revenue sources by type. As you note here, most of our revenue is derived from property taxes at 31.3%, and sales taxes being the second largest revenue source at 26.4%. Oh, did I say that wrong? I'm sorry, I'm back up. Sales tax is 25.9%, I'm sorry. So here's our FY19 operating expenditures, and this is sort of where the money goes. So this chart just depicts by function what we spend our dollars on, our budgeted dollars on. As you can see, public safety is our largest expenditure at 38.1%, and with public works being the second largest at 10.3%. This chart just depicts our operating budget by type, and so you can see that the largest portion of our operating budget in totality is for personnel services. This includes employees and all associated benefits, and that represents almost 56% of our total operating budget. So just moving on to the general fund, we have projected revenues of $150,604,260 with projected expenditures of $151,144,558. The general fund accounts for just our normal day-to-day operations and activities such as police, fire, public works, parks and recreations. This fund is largely funded with sales taxes, property taxes, and franchise fees. We do have a few recommended fee increases for this particular budget. One is for the police department for the alcohol beverage card fees. Current rate for this fee is $25. What is included in the recommended budget is an increase to $65, so it's a $40 increase per card. This is the cost of issuance according to the police department, and so we're just adjusting this fee to accommodate the cost of issuance. There's also included in the budget a $10 fee increase to the certificate of occupancy permit fee. It is currently at $30, and we are increasing that to $40. And then there is a new fee, which is at the recommendation of our probate court. It's for passport fees. That's a new function that the probate court will take on in the FY19 budget. Is a new service that they're providing to the community. Right now, the only passport processing facility that we have in the surrounding area is with the post office, and so now our probate court will offer that service to our community.
Is that something that's required, or is that
It's just something that he'd like to do. It's something that he's allowed to do. So it's a service that he'd like to provide to the community. So in the general fund, there are a few new positions. The first one being for the tax assessor's office, for a GIS technician. For the police department, there's a crime analyst position. For Muskogee County Prison, there are 2 correctional officers. For the clerk of Superior Court, 2 deputy clerk 2 positions. The probate court is requesting a deputy clerk 2 position. This is to take on that new function of processing the passports. And then there are 3 part-time positions being included in the budget for elections. The elections position is budget neutral. There's a reallocation of expenditures. She's actually making 3 temporary election workers into just regular part-time.
I don't know if you want questions as we go along, or you want us to save them till the end, or?
We don't get, lost in which spot you're on.
Okay. For these new positions, when these different departments present, are they going to give us the rationale for adding all of these? So you're not giving us the rationale today, they'll give it to us when they come before us? And are all of these people coming before us?
No, all of the departments have not requested a budget review session meeting at this time, but the mayor did detail out in her letter the sort of the rationale as far as why they are included in the budget, which would have been, which was taken from the department's budget request.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, at your request, we can certainly have any or all come before you. So if you want them all, certainly we can do that. If there are specific ones that you have questions or concerns about, then we will just have those. So we'll be guided by your direction.
Well, I think if we are going to be establishing new positions, we need to know, we need to have a real clear idea of the rationale for doing that. So if there are those on here that are not scheduled to come, I would like to hear from them why they think that even though they have given part of that to or all of that to the mayor, I'd like for us and the community to hear why we are looking to add new employees.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, I've had several calls already on the clerk positions, Superior Court, so we probably do need, we're going to have some type of detailed discussion on that particular issue.
Okay.
You were talking, Angelica, about the reclassifications. Have those been to the University of Georgia or CSU for review?
Yes, sir. We have, during the FY19 budget process, we did submit, HR submitted to Columbus State University to request to review the reclassifications, and they have come back and are consistent with what's currently in the budget.
So they approved all of them, or they
Well, not
made
all
suggestions?
requests that was submitted was approved, but the ones that are included in the budget, CSU confers with the reclassifications.
Are there any in the budget that were disapproved by CSU?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So as far as the reclassifications, the first one is in inspections and code. There's a special enforcement supervisor, G15, that's moving to special enforcement coordinator, G17. Public Works, the animal control division manager, G21 position, is being reclassified to animal control veterinarian, G23. Parks and Recreation has several reclassifications, one of those being the athletic program supervisor, G16, being converted to an athletic division manager, G19. Community schools, G16 to community schools division manager, G19. A marina supervisor, G9, to a recreation program specialist, 3, which is a G14. The aquatic center director position, which was a G23, has been reclassified to an aquatic division manager, G19. Therapeutics rec center leader, which is a part-time position, G2, is being reclassified to administrative secretary. It's a full-time position at a G10. And then there's a custodian position within the Parks and Recreation Department, G6, which is being reclassified to a recreation program specialist, G14. I do know as far as Parks and Recreation, which they are one of the departments that are on the schedule, so you can ask them more detail about the positions, but I think they are trying to get the division, have division managers within all of the divisions. As you can see, some of these reclassifications are bringing either positions up to the level of a G19 division manager or bringing it down to that level. And then the custodian position, I know, is the lowest classified position that we have within the city.
Councilor Allen, have a question?
You go ahead and finish.
Oh, I was going to say the custodian position is the lowest classified position that we have, full-time position that we have within the city. And to bring it in line with the other rec centers, which has a sort of a supervisor, those are all at the recreation program specialist 3 levels. So, Councilor Allen.
I had a couple of questions. Is there a chart in this information you provided for the pay grade so that we can kind of refresh ourselves on the various categories, grades, and the salary entry-level position? And the second part of the question is, as you move, for example, the first one you mentioned, inspections, G15 to a G17, at G17, is that the entry level for 17, or is that somewhere beyond entry level?
There is a person currently in this position, so it would not be, just based on where the person is currently out on the scale at the G15, don't believe that it starts out at a 17A. But what's included in the budget is consistent with our personnel policy, which determines how far you go out when your position is being reclassified or if you're being promoted.
So could you give us a copy of that policy too?
Sure.
Okay. So you
need a copy of
the chart's not in here.
No.
You're going to provide that.
Yes.
And then you'll give us the policy.
So you want a copy of the pay scale?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, the pay scale will have everything on it, and then you can look up what the positions are, is what I understand. Is that right, Angelica?
The pay scale is just numbers. It has all the grades with the letters going across the top, and it details out by grade and step what that salary is. As far as the personnel policy, that is included in the personnel regs as well as the employee handbook. It talks about how people are promoted, how many grades that goes out, but I can provide that at the next meeting.
Well, my concern is, unless we have the department heads come in here and we can ask questions or they can make a presentation, we're only looking at a job grade 15 to 17. We don't know what the dollar impact is for that particular person.
Well, the dollar impact is included in the mayor's budget letter.
I know, but it's not specific to this position. If we could have something that's more specific so we get an idea of where they're moving, how much it is, and the justification for it.
Well, that is listed specifically in the mayor's budget letter.
Okay, but I guess what I'm looking for is inspection and code should come and say, this is
Okay.
what I'm planning to do, this is why I need this person, and this is what they're going to be doing.
So we need to schedule all departments that are requesting a reclassification.
I would
Well-
like that, yes.
Okay.
Well, let me tell you what we're going to do. We'll do exactly what Councilor Thomas asked for, and then we will make sure that council members get the job pay scale that has the grade and the alphabets across the top and so forth, so on.
Mic is not on.
Testing. Can you hear me now? Okay, we'll make sure that we get you exactly what you asked for. In addition to that, what Councilor Allen is asking for, we will get you the pay scale chart, and we can get you a listing of every position in the government and what pay grade those positions are.
Not all of them, just the ones that are presented, right?
Just the ones presented, yeah. And so that way, on the ones just presented, because if we did all of them, you would have
We'd be here a while.
yeah, you'd have a long list. Also, there was one other thing I was going to tell you, but it slipped my mind.
I've been there.
But yeah, we'll get that to you. The other point I wanted to make is that when she mentioned a person at a 15 who's already out on the scale, that person in a 15 out on the scale is already earning more than the entry level of a 17. So
Right.
you
So
wouldn't,
they're
they would
beyond
be
that.
taking a pay
Right.
cut to go to the entry level of a 17, and that's why the policy tells us how to move that person from a 15 to a 17.
So if they're at the end of 15, they may move to C of 17, something like that.
For example, if whatever pay step they're in 15, the policy, I believe, tells you that because a 17 is 2 additional steps above 15, you would go to where they are in the 15, you place them in the 17 there, and then you move them out 2 steps.
That's correct.
My memory is not so bad, but yeah, but that's how that works.
All right.
And so that's why, when they go from 15 to 17, you just laterally move them down to a 17 and move them out 2 because they went up 2. So that's how the policy is written.
Does the policy also dictate that if they're at a 15, they move 2 steps up instead of going to 16?
Well, it depends. If a person is in a 15 and they apply for a job and get promoted to a job that advertised at a 17, it's exactly what I explained to you. And therefore, when it went to CSU, and CSU said, no, that position is currently a 15 and should be a 17, then that policy works exactly how I explained it to you.
Okay.
And that's what we got.
All right, thank you.
Moving on with the additional
Councilor Thomas, you have a question?
Yes, it would be helpful to me, and I think it would be helpful to the people watching, and particularly to our employees, if we could have a presentation on personnel. Just what are you recommending? What the current Special Enforcement Supervisor, G15 is at
1-2.
X number of dollars. We are recommending to move to a 17 at X number of dollars. Just real clean, if you will. I don't need the entire salary schedule. First of all, there's a lot of information on one of those little bitty pages, and my eyes are not what they used to be. So the simpler you can make it for us, I think the better it would be, not only for us as counselors, but for the employee, so the employee knows that we are, looking at this specifically. So if you could do that, that would be helpful to me. And I would ask that you include in that the new personnel, the reclass personnel, and the deleted personnel, particularly our unfunded, the reason for unfunding those positions. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So additional reclassifications in the general fund include for probate court, the fiduciary compliance officer /law clerk, G20, being reclassified to associate judge, G22. Also in probate court, the deputy clerk position, G12, being reclassified to a passport supervisor /deputy clerk, G14. Then the sheriff's office, the major PS22 being reclassified to a deputy sheriff, PS14. Also in the sheriff's office, the major PS22 being reclassified to jail commander at PS23. And then the chief deputy sheriff, PS24F, being reclassified to a PS24H. So he's just moving out on the scale. Also included in the personnel adjustments are our deleted and unfunded positions. In inspections and codes, the building inspector, G16 position is being deleted. Parks and Recreation, they have a gatekeeper position as well as 2 part-time park maintenance worker, G7 positions that they're unfunding. And then there's a position within adult probation, a part-time accounting clerk, G10, that's also being deleted. So there is a little bit of capital budgeted, included in the budget for the general fund. This is the first time that within several years that we've been able to budget capital within the general fund. That capital amount is $245,119. Engineering is receiving an allocation of $119,965. This is for a flatbed truck. With modifications. This is the truck that they use to maintain our traffic signals and signs. And so the truck that they have is well beyond its useful life, and so that's why it's included here as part of the capital replacement program for the general fund. Within Public Works, there are 2 F-250 crew cab trucks. These are replacements, as well as 2 zero-turn mowers. There are also replacements. This is for use at our cemeteries. And then within Parks and Recreation, there are 5 zero-turn mowers. These are replacements for use at our various park locations. One of the ways that we are able to achieve this small amount of capital in the general fund is by foregoing our risk management per vehicle allocation this fiscal year. Funding for our risk management fund is provided on a cost reimbursement basis. And so while a surplus or deficit in an internal service fund, such as the risk management fund, is in any given year over a reasonable period of time, it poses no problem, but a significant and growing surplus or deficit over time is incompatible with the cost reimbursement character of that type of fund. And so our risk management portion of the risk management fund has a fund balance of just over $4 million. And so we'll continue to monitor the fund balance levels for the risk management fund over time. But like I said, just to make sure that we don't have too much of a surplus in the risk management fund this year for FY19, we're foregoing that particular allocation. There is still an allocation included in the budget for the workers' compensation side of the risk management fund, just not the risk management side of that fund. Yes, sir. You have a question?
Trying to, you have a chart on this, or you just randomly speaking to it? Okay, well, I do have a question on that. So right now, currently, there's 4 million in the risk management
Just
total?
for the risk management portion, yes.
And what normally is paid out on average?
Usually, it's about between 700,000 to 800,000 that we expend on the risk management side of that fund. The risk management fund has two sides. There's the risk management side and there's the workers' compensation side. On the risk management side, the annual expenditures are about 700,000 to 800,000, and the way we fund that is through cost allocations to other funds. And so this year, because we have a significant fund balance on the risk management side, we're foregoing that allocation this year because we don't want to continue to add to the risk management fund balance if it's not necessary, because that kind of takes away from the character of the fund. It's a cost reimbursement fund. And so the other funds are reimbursing the risk management fund for the cost. And so we have a surplus in that fund right now. And so what we're doing this year is foregoing that allocation so that we don't continue to build that surplus unnecessarily.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is you're not going to add to it this year. You're already just factoring it in right where it's at.
That's correct.
And does that include the risk management fund, include the city attorney's discretionary legal funds? Or let's just call it his legal funds?
No. A portion of it does. When we do reserve a bit of fund balance for legal cases. And if it is related to vehicles, we have a claim or a case related to a vehicle, we do reserve that out of the risk management fund.
It's held in risk management?
It is held in risk management.
And then is there also additional monies held in the city attorney's line item?
Not in the city attorney's
Budget.
budget, but we reserve a portion of general fund balance to cover litigation.
And what's the normal amount that we usually hold in risk management?
Well, it just depends.
On average over the last let's say the last 5 years?
I would say about 800, about 800,000. I think that's what we reserved in FY17.
Okay.
Right, the general fund has a reserve as well for litigation. And for FY17, I believe we reserved 2.2 million of fund balance for litigation.
Okay.
So you
I'm
got.
good.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay, because I was going to,
No, I got it.
okay, great. All right.
So as far as the fund balance, we are projecting to end FY18 at 65.45 days, 42.97 of those days being from OLOS funds. And for FY19, we're projecting 63.94 as our ending balance for general fund balance, with 41.98 days being from OLOS funds. The value of 1 day for FY19 is $419,846. So the Stormwater Fund is balanced at, with revenues and expenditures at $5,832,210. The Stormwater Fund accounts for activities restricted for stormwater and drainage, and this is primarily funded through property taxes. The millage remains the same at 1.25 mills for Urban Service District 1 and .20 mills for Urban Service District 2. Personnel changes within the Stormwater Fund are reclassifications. For Public Works, the Stormwater Drainage Technician, G15D, is being reclassified to a Stormwater Drainage Technician, G13A, as well as an equipment operator crew leader, G13B, being reclassified to a heavy equipment supervisor, G15B. Capital within the Stormwater Fund amounts to $696,046. Engineering's portion of that capital is $1,686. Public Works is $694,360. And the capital included for Public Works is for flatbed dump truck. All of these are replacements, a crew cab truck, an aluminum trench box, an eductor truck, and a 7-yard dump truck. There's also included in the Stormwater Fund capital improvements of $1,145,602. In the paving fund, it's balanced at $16,461,875. The paving fund accounts for maintenance and improvements related to our roads and bridges, and it is also primarily funded by property taxes. The millage remains the same in the paving fund at 3.44 mills for Urban Service District 1 and 0.55 mills for Urban Service District 2. Personnel adjustments within the paving fund is a reclassification for Public Works. It's reclassifying a Public Works Supervisor, G15, to a Correctional Detail Supervisor, PS15. So the position grade remains the same. It's just changing from a general government position to a public safety position.
When you bring back to us the information on the personnel, would you include the personnel from all of these various funds?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. So capital for the paving fund is just over $1 million. Engineering's allocation is $67,760. That is for iPads listed here, as well as the replacement of a mid-size SUV. Public Works allocation is a little bit more than $1 million. All of the items that are listed here are the items that are being replaced in Public Works. There is also included within the budget CIP at $1,969,470. And so the Medical Center Fund has 3 mills projected at $14,597,669 for a proposed budget of $15,197,669. The difference there is a $600,000 transfer from the general fund, which is included for excess inmate medical care. This is funded solely with property taxes, except for the transfer. And we have a contract currently that includes the inmate medical expenses, and we pay this money out on a monthly basis to the medical center or Piedmont. So the integrated waste fund
Question from Councilor Davis.
Could you give me the year that that contract expires?
2022? July 1 of
July 1,
2022.
2022?
Yes, sir.
Go
So
ahead.
the integrated,
Councilor Allen, have a question? One second.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My question revolves around the millage and the inmate medical expense, part of the contract. each year, we reassess the millage rate, and then that dictates times 3 meals what we expend to the medical center. And then each year, it's a set amount for the inmate care. Is that right?
Each year, we assess the values of our property, and but the millage is set at 3 meals. So it's 3 meals times whatever the assessed values are.
Right. So I guess where I'm headed with the question is, in the contract, we have a fixed rate for inmate care. In other words, it doesn't rise with the millage rate reassessment. It's a fixed amount.
No, the amount is not fixed. We have an amount that's fixed that we're not responsible for charges until after it reaches that point. I believe that amount is $1 million.
Yeah. But that number doesn't change. It stays the same according to the contract. So after they expend the first up to that dollar amount, then we pick up after that.
We do 50%.
50% after that?
After that dollar amount.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So the integrated,
I'm sorry, Councilor Thomas?
Ms. Alexander, the 3 meals that you were talking about, if I remember correctly, Mayor Tomlinson was able to negotiate with the medical center folks to change that to not a straight 3 meals, but the percentage that we collect of the tax digest. Isn't that right, Mayor?
that's correct.
So it's 3% of what we actually collect, not necessarily the value of 3 meals.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So the integrated waste fund is balanced at $13,277,000. The integrated waste fund accounts for refuse collection and disposal, as well as our recycling and landfill operations. There is a slight rate increase included in the FY19 recommended budget. Currently, the per month rate is $17. So it's increasing by $1 for FY19 to $18 per month. Included in the budget are the debt service payments that we have for our capital leases on our existing equipment, as well as a capital lease for new equipment. There's also included within the budget capital improvement monies of $856,000, and this is due to our expansion of our construction and landfill, construction and demolition landfill. So the existing equipment that we're leasing in the integrated waste fund is for 29 garbage trucks, 2 grab balls, and 1 bulldozer. And included in the recommended budget is a new equipment lease for 6 additional garbage trucks, as well as $30,000 to buy a piece of equipment outright. So the E911 fund is balanced at a little bit more than $4 million. The E911 accounts for our telephone subscriber charges and collections for emergency dispatch. This is primarily funded with landline, wireless, and prepaid phone charges. There is a transfer of subsidy transfer into this fund from the OLOS fund of $1,149,886. This is an annual transfer into this fund. This budget reflects a 25% reduction in our prepaid wireless fees due to a state-issued refund to our to wireless providers. So this 25% reduction increases the subsidy needed from the OLOS fund.
Was that a one-time, or is it going to continue?
It was a one-time refund. Well, no. It's a refund that spans over the period of 5 years.
Going back 5 years or 4?
Going forward. So we'll be impacted with this reduction for at least 4 additional fiscal years. Or 3 additional fiscal years. This is the first time we saw an impact or a reduction was in FY18. And that was for a refund that the state issued to prepaid wireless providers. That's not a fee that we collect here locally. It's collected by the state. And just due to some miscalculation or overpayments by the prepaid wireless providers, the state is issuing a refund. And so this is a payment that we only get once a year.
Right.
And so for the next 4 years, including FY19, we'll see a reduction.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Budget of $2 million.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure.
If I heard you right, you said that E911 was balanced,
Yes,
but earlier in the page 7, I think it talks about a subsidy.
yes.
Is that,
The balancing includes the subsidy.
well, that's what I mean, but when, if you're hearing this at home and you say that it's balanced, to me, that means revenues coming in and expenses are equal. But earlier in the presentation, we are subsidizing E911 to some extent.
Yes.
So I think it's just terminology. But I would just wanted to make sure we phrase it properly, if you could
Okay.
help me with that. This layperson is having a hard time hanging on to this, so I want to make sure I get it right.
Okay.
It's balanced as long as we subsidize it.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so we'll have to make that clear, because that would be the case with, for example, Civic Center, Trade Center, because they get the hotel motel tax.
Right.
It's balanced, but would not be balanced if they didn't have those subsidies from hotel motel tax or whatever. So she can make that known or clear when presented.
Okay, and let me go back and help clarify again what you said about the state law requires a refund, and that is over the next 5 years. And I think Chair Baker asked, how far does that go back, or is it?
Well, the first time we saw a reduction was in FY18. So it would be FY18, 19, and then 3 additional years that we would see a reduction in prepaid wireless charges.
So who is the refund going to?
To the prepaid wireless providers.
Are they by law required to pass that to their customers?
I'm not specifically sure if they're required to pass it to back to their customers. I believe it was an overpayment situation. And so the state is issuing, and all counties within the state of Georgia are impacted by this 25% reduction.
Well, I don't want to hold this up. Can you get us a little summary of this, maybe the state law or whatever
Well,
dictated this?
yeah, why don't we just do we'll get a one-page fact sheet that will just lay it out and explain it. I'll get Deputy City Manager Hodge to work on that, since our limited budget staff tied up right now. By the way, I'm going to be asking for some help for her later in the session. You notice she takes her own notes and all that, but she has a part-time office manager. She needs a full-time, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike.
So the economic development budget for FY19 is $2,432,945. The Economic Development Fund accounts for 0.50 mills, and it's used for attracting quality companies, broadening the tax base, and as well as job. Authority receives 0.25 mills out of the 0.5 mills, and that amounts to $1,216,473. Out of the Economic Development Fund, we also have our commitment for NCR and the Blue Cross Blue Shield project. We are in year 4 of that 10-year commitment at $800,000. Also included in the recommended budget, and also sort of outlined in the mayor's letter, is a robotics initiative from the Development Authority of $150,000, and it is for a 3-year period. which leaves in reserves to be used at council's discretion for FY19, $266,472.
Councilor
That is not
Davis?
total reserves, that's just the amount we're setting aside in FY19.
Right. Okay, Councilor Davis?
Mr. City Manager, would you add somewhere on our schedule the Development Authority to come in and give us an update? I think we were supposed to get an update on the NCR matter. We didn't, so maybe they'll just combine it all together to give us an update what's happening in their world.
Yeah, we'll do that.
I think there's probably some questions from some council members on what you're seeing up on the screen as well.
Yes, we'll get you an update, and we may be able to have them come on May 29th, which is a work session, unless you want it done. You want them
I
to
would
come?
think, being that we're talking about budgets and all, that
Yes. Okay, well,
They need to-
we'll get them, see if we can get them to one of these budget sessions.
because I think your last meeting scheduled for May 22nd.
Just
Yes, that's correct.
That's just the add
So-
delete list.
So we'll get them here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right, Ms. Tuff?
Quick question. That was the same thing, same page. How does that affect us? That's what I wanted to know with the NCR, these numbers, with them leaving.
Well, as far as the budget is concerned, we are still obligated,
Okay.
so.
Well,
it's
I just
the-
want to update as far as how it works.
Right, the
Well,
development authority.
when we did, we're in year 4 of 10, and it's just like any other bank agreement. We got to complete the term
Okay.
through the next 6 years. But,
And this is
of
with the
course,
Development Authority?
yeah, when we
Who's the deal with?
did the project through a lending institution,
Right.
we refinanced, because initially the payment was $1 million, and when we refinanced it, when Blue Cross Blue Shield came on the scene later, or was it may have been NCR came later, but then we refinanced it and we got it down to $800,000, and it went to 10 years. We will complete that process, but there will be clawbacks
Okay.
related to NCR, but we'll still have to pay this payment through year 10.
Okay.
It goes to the development authority. We pay the $800,000
Yeah.
to the development authority.
And
That's what I'm asking.
And-
well,
Right.
we pay it to them so they can pay it to the lending institution.
Okay.
But this has nothing to do with the current situation with NCR and the clawbacks. That would be, it has to do with the initial
Initial agreement?
agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Councilor Thomas?
Because the NCR issue is so immediate and so out there in the community, I would like Councilor Huff, at some point, and maybe when the Development Authority comes back, would you go through that process again and, you know, make sure that we understand the NCR Blue Cross Blue Shield connection and then what's going to happen to that?
Sure.
I think with all of the hullabaloo about NCR, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure, following up on that, if council wants to discuss it now or wait for the development authority to come, but on the robotics initiative, reading through the detail, that's a salaried position, is that my understanding? Plus benefits, plus marketing, plus travel. And that's an add-on. I mean, that's an additional cost to the government. We're supposed to fund that position through the other $250,000 that we hold internally. And, you know, my question is, and I don't know what type of discussion you had with them, but I think one question that I have is that this wasn't that long ago. A $250,000 was $980,000. I remember that clearly. Now it's $1,280,000. So a $250,000 has grown $300,000. Why can't that self-fund a position like this? I mean, there are a lot of questions that that I have, I think we need to get explained.
Right. They simply asked that it be put into the budget for council's consideration. That's a legislative
Right.
issue, obviously. And they do have quite a proposal. I mean, they've been working with the chancellor of the
Right.
university system. They've been working with the Department of Defense. I mean, it's a real opportunity, and so it's not for the mayor to nix
Sure.
that. Obviously, it could create hundreds of jobs, potentially. So they need to come here and flesh it out. I will say that, don't forget, NCR, we learned at 11:30 a.m. the Monday before the budget dropped. It had already gone to the printer. So I don't know. They'll have to come and answer questions about this. My thought is that with a clawback, with there being no longer an obligation to go to NCR, there should be monies there
Right.
that council can do things in their discretion. I don't want to speak prematurely because I just don't have command of the terms of that agreement. But that's my thought at this point, and I think Councilor Davis is right. We need to get them here because they've been researching since the moment they found out the clawback scenario, how much money that means, and so forth. So I think there are some answers at the ready, and I think they should come back earlier than later and let you all hear. Like I said, I know there have been many meetings with some pretty high-up state and federal officials about this robotics opportunity, and it's really for them to tell you those details.
Yep. And I wasn't criticizing or judging the position of the opportunity. It's just the funding mechanism as to, with everything that's up in the air regarding the millage and the clawbacks, and it would just be to clarify the funding mechanism would be.
Yeah. And I know that some of you were at the reception at the National Infantry Museum when the Commandant General spoke about robotics, and the CSU president.
Right, I was there.
You were there. I thought I saw you, Councilor Baker, and you, Councilor Huff, and Councilor Thomas. Yeah, you were there. You sure were. Sorry about that, but they were strongly. They see a bright future, and as you heard from them and not from us, and so it's more of a partnership working to make sure that we take advantage of the moment. So I'll just leave it at that.
And Mr. City Manager, I wanted to get on board with you. It was a great presentation by the General, and it comes out in the District 3 area, so I tend to benefit a lot in the council and the city as a whole. So we're just trying to get our arms around the money aspect of what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah, so we can support. I ran into some people during the weekend at a conference that was speaking of robotics in Columbus possibly in the future. So I know it's being discussed.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Councilor Davis?
Yes, and Mayor, I appreciate you adding those comments. But when the Development Authority comes in, Mr. City Manager, just tell them we want to understand the contract thoroughly and clearly. I don't want them to come in here and say we're looking into it. I want some answers to some questions in the contract.
Certainly.
Thank you.
So the debt service fund is balanced at $12,947,878. The debt service accounts for accumulation and disbursements of principal and interest payments. And again, that millage rate for FY19 has slightly decreased to 0.47 mils. It was at 0.60 mils for FY18. So the Metro Fund revenues are a little bit more than 9.3 million, expenditures a little bit more than 9.4 million, and the use of fund balance of $61,298. Metro Fund accounts for the operation of our public transit system. It's primarily funded with property taxes as well as federal and state grants. Service charges and T-SPLOS monies are also incorporated into the budget. There is one personnel adjustment in the Metro Fund. It's a T-SPLOS funded position. We're reclassifying a correctional officer PS12 to a crew leader, G12. So it's changing from a public safety position to a general government position. There's about $204 million in capital included in the budget for Metro for FY19. A lot of the capital that's included in Metro's budget are one-time capital purchases. There is an opportunity that Metro has to take advantage of some additional grants, and so that's why the capital expenditure for Metro is what it is for FY19. So the Parking Management Fund in FY19 is being discontinued as it no longer meets the requirements of an enterprise fund. All parking management activities have been transferred to the general fund. The revenue is required to be reported as an enterprise fund if one of the three, if it meets certain criteria. And for FY19, it was determined that Metro, the Parking Management Fund, no longer meets this criteria. The first criteria is that the fund activity has to be financed with debt that is secured solely by the pledge of net revenues and expenses. There is currently no debt pledged in the Parking Management Fund. The second requirement is that there are laws or regulations that the activities, costs of providing the services be covered with fees and charges rather than taxes or similar charges, and so it doesn't meet that definition as well. And thirdly, that the pricing policies of these activities are designed to recover the costs, including capital costs such as depreciation and debt service. So the Parking Management Fund is basically no longer self-sustainable. With opening up the garages, they're no longer receiving rent revenue as well as the public parking fees. We were looking in FY19 to subsidize that fund to the tune of about $70,000. And so what we've done is dissolved it and merged those activities into the general fund, creating eliminating the need for a subsidy. So the Trade Center Fund is have projected revenues of $3,042,000, expenditures at $3,088,227. There's a use of fund balance here of $46,227. Again, in the Trade Center Fund, this accounts for the operations of the facility. It is primarily funded from event proceeds as well as beer tax and hotel motel tax. Beer tax at $731,000 for FY19. Projected hotel motel tax is $610,000. There is one personnel change in the Trade Center Fund for FY19. It's for a new conference facilitator position. And I'm sorry I left the grade off there. It's a G15. There is a small amount of capital in the Trade Center Fund of $276,595. The golf courses are receiving a subsidy from the general fund. Bull Creek, that budgeted amount of expenditures for Bull Creek is $1,250,200. And again, that includes a $50,000 subsidy to Bull Creek. For Oxbow Creek, the budget is $380,000, and that includes a $150,000 subsidy from the general fund. So the Trade Center Fund, excuse me, is balanced at $5,373,143. This accounts for the operation of its facilities, and it's primarily funded with event proceeds, as well as hotel motel tax at about $1.22 million. There is capital included in the budget for the Civic Center of $203,143. The plan is to use the Friends of Columbus funds for the Civic Center to purchase the capital that's outlaid in the budget. There is no subsidy from the general fund for the Civic Center Fund. And so as far as the healthcare fund, the budget is $23.8 million. Again, we're continuing the 70-30 contribution strategy for active employees. There is no premium increases for FY19 with the wellness incentive options. And again, Shaw Hankins is here. They're going to go a little bit further as far as talking about the options. So their presentation will be directly following mine. The risk management fund, the budget for FY19 is $4.2 million. Again, the risk management fund accounts for general liability, vehicle claims, as well as workers' compensation.
Okay, I think Councilor Davis had a question.
You know, without going into deep detail, would you go back to the rationale under the, I want to go back to the parking management fund that's being discontinued. If you say it's going to be now accounted for in the general fund, how will we be able to keep an eye on that? Are you going to list it as a line item on the general fund in the monthly reports we get, or?
It will be a separate division in the general fund. It will be included on the monthly snapshot as a division within the general fund.
So we'll be able to see it still?
Yes, sir.
Track it? Mm-hmm. Okay, because I know that's the benefit of having it as a fund is that we could track it. We could keep an eye on it. I know over the years we're all concerned about the subsidies that we've had to contribute to the parking garages.
Yes, sir. It will be listed as a separate division on the monthly snapshot with all the other general fund departments.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so the Cdbg fund is not a part of the operating funds, but it is one of the funds that we denote out as far as the budget process is concerned. The budget for Cdbg for FY19 is $2,066,470. This fund accounts for grant monies received from the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the Community Development Block Grant Program. And so here are our agency appropriations. There are no changes to the agencies receiving funding from the city from FY18 to FY19. The only differences here is our payment to River Valley Regional, which is based on, it's $1 per capita. And so as the population changes, estimated population changes, so does the payment to River Valley. And then there's a slight increase for the health department rent for FY19. So the non-operating funds.
Excuse me, Councilor Davis had a question.
Yeah, Mr. Budget Chair, if we could on the block grant fund, I mean, every year we always ask for a breakdown of all that to be able to see where all the money is being allocated. Could we do that again and on the side of it, just show where last year it was spent and then this year the amount from last year and then this year the amount and where it's going?
Sure.
Can you do that?
No, but she can. I'll refer that to the finance director and have them put together a schedule for it. Did you need that as part of the budget?
You're probably a little more persuasive than I am.
Well, I don't know about that. Did you want that as part of the budget presentations?
Yes, sir,
Okay. And I'll
as a pass out.
as a
Okay,
handout?
Okay.
Okay. Any particular
So,
timeline that we need that on? I mean, you want it for the next meeting? Or
Soon
did
as
you want to send it out?
As
She
soon
could-
as possible, and could you make it
That's something they
multicolor?
could email that in advance.
That's okay, that's fine.
Okay.
so
Make
we'll,
sure it's in multicolor.
We can't afford that.
so we will not have the director come. We will just provide you with the information, as I understand it.
That's what I understand.
That would be fine, yeah, just a
Sure.
schedule of revenues and expenses on that particular fund. I don't know that we need a presentation from
Okay.
the department.
Okay, good.
So our non-operating funds, these are funds not for the general operations of the government. They are restricted for a specific purpose. They must be budgeted annually, and each fund, each is maintained in its own fund. So we have the UDAG, or Urban Development Action Grant Fund, at $15,000. The home program budget at $754,315. The Multi-Governmental Grants Fund at $3.7 million. The Hotel Motel Tax Fund at $4.8 million. The Police Forfeiture Fund at $150,000. The County Drug Abuse Treatment Fund, or the DATE Fund, at $68,000. The Metro Drug Task Force Fund at $150,000. The County Penalty and Assessment Fund at $1.2 million. Sheriff's Forfeiture Fund at $10,000. I'm sorry, I clicked it. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program Fund at a little bit more than $1 million. Nothing for the Marshals Forfeiture Fund. Capital Projects Funds at $22.7 million. The T-SPLOST Fund at $61.4 million, and the 1999 SPLOST at $9.3 million. The Lease Purchase Program Fund has a budget for FY19 of $443,000. This is for the budgeted equipment that we plan to lease through our GMA lease program. This would include the 6 garbage trucks as well as 2 street sweepers in the paving fund. Our Building Authority bond, Series 2003A at $600,000, Series 2003B at $4.2 million, Series 2010B at $900,000, and 2010C at $40,000. Also included in our non-operating funds budget is $50,000 for a Family and Youth Coalition Fund.
Councilor Davis?
Madam Finance Director, 2 questions. One, when you look at these various funds on the non-operating funds, Police Forfeiture Fund, Metro Drug Task Force Fund, Sheriff's Forfeiture Fund, I've had some questions, and just for clarification, there may be some citizens watching, but are those funds, the monies that are being collected, are they left up to the discretion of the department to use within the department, or do they all go back into the general fund, or can they be used within the department under the discretion of the department head?
They are not in the general fund. Each of these funds listed here are their own separate fund, and they are used at the discretion of that department.
Whether it's the police department, or sheriff's department, marshal's department?
For the funds that they oversee, yes. So the police department oversees the police forfeiture fund as well as the Metro Drug Task Force Fund. They use those funds at their discretion. These are funds that they, monies that they get from seizures and arrests, and they utilize that funding at their pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Huff?
And out of all the non-operating funds, the Marshals Fund is 0? Could you explain that to me?
Well,
Had no activity or what?
no activity, just no activity. If the marshal's office sees monies, then it would go into that fund.
Okay.
And on some of those funds, the state will dictate what they can expend it on. I mean, it's not necessarily.
Well, it has to be for drug
Right. It's not
reinforcement
It's not
activities.
necessarily their own discretion. There are some guidelines outlined.
Well, that's correct.
Education, awareness.
Yeah.
Equipment for undercover activities, all that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe, Ms., let's see, Councilor Thomas, did you have a question?
You got it.
Okay.
Right, so
answered it
there
for
are
me.
legal requirements, but they, within those requirements, they need.
I had a senior moment there on my second question.
I understand.
Last year, I believe we talked about the lease program with the garbage trucks, either last year or the year before. There was a presentation on it. Public Services bought us the
Right.
idea, and we approved it. That presentation, can you make sure, I'd like to get that presentation. I know it's on record somewhere, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
What presentation?
On the, dealing with the Public Services, dealing with the garbage trucks, mainly with the lease program. I know we went up, was it $2 one
Okay.
year?
Yes, sir.
And
That's from FY17.
There was a lot of focus on the garbage trucks, a lot of focus on the lease program. I'd like to have that, all the presentations or the information that was given to us at that time.
Okay, so all presentations related to the garbage trucks and the leasing of
The lease
trucks.
programs, that whole conversation. I know we had some detailed talks on that.
Okay. Yes, sir. So the other local option sales tax fund is balanced at 33.6 million. And this fund is a sub-fund of the general fund, and it accounts for 70% allocated for public safety and 30% for infrastructure. So within the other local option sales tax fund public safety side, there's current personnel, but included within the budget of the fund for the police department, it's 110 police officers, which include 12 sergeants, 14 corporals, 89 police officers. And then there is also included 9 E911 technicians. Within the fire department, there's 20 firefighters. Muskogee County Prison has 5 officers, 4 being correctional officers, 1 sergeant. The marshal has 5 marshal deputies. The sheriff's office current personnel within the OLOS is 13 deputy officers, 2 sergeants, 9 correctional officers, and 2 lieutenants. Then there's the crime prevention, which includes the crime prevention director. The Solicitor General, 2 assistant solicitors, 1 deputy clerk. The district attorney has 2 assistant district attorneys. The clerk of Superior Court has 1 deputy clerk, 2. Recorder's Court has 2 judicial admin technicians. Municipal Court has two clerks, and Probate Court has a clerk. Also included within the budget is the annual supplement for sworn public safety officers. It excludes elected officials. The amount of that continued supplement is $3,121.
On those personnel, Ms. Alexander, are they, is this the number that is allotted, or is it the number that, positions that are filled? For example, I know on the police department, we had authorized 110 officers. Are all of those 110 positions filled, or is this just what's authorized?
This is just what's authorized
Okay.
to be filled.
To be filled, okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So also,
Excuse me, and there are no new positions being recommended, is that correct?
not in the,
Not in the OLOS?
That's correct.
Out of the OLOS, okay, thank
that's
you.
correct. Also included in the budget for the OLOS public safety, again, is that the subsidy to E911 at $1.1 million. The E911 system upgrade, we're in year 5 of that, so this allocation goes away next year for this particular item. We're also in year 4 of 10 for our 800 megahertz radio system upgrade, in year 3 of 9 for our siren maintenance. There is $750,000 included for crime prevention grants. Transfer to CIP for the court management system of $750,000, as well as the jail generator upgrade of $879,383. There is a little bit more than $1.1 million included in the OLOS public safety for debt service, which is outlined in the presentation. Most of the debt service payments come from the GMA leases that we put in place in prior fiscal years, particularly for the fire department. The capital that was distributed to the departments is $343,987. For the police department, it's $136,000 for 40 dash cameras, The fire department is $92,481, and that's for protective clothing as well as service and maintenance for the burn building. For Muskogee County Prison, they're replacing a 15-passenger inmate van. And for the marshal, it's, they're included in the budget is a license plate reader renewal as well as body armor. And for the sheriff's office, there's $80,000, which is to be spent towards the inmate video visitation system upgrade, and we're in year 2 of 4 of that agreement that was previously approved by council.
Councilor Huff?
Why is the marshal so low compared to all other departments?
Well, the allocations are determined and distributed based on the number of sworn officers. And so we do take the amount that is available, determine what the allocation should be based on the number of sworn officers, and then divvy that out as best as we can according to the capital requests that are submitted by the departments.
Yeah, I've been asking about equal percentages, for a while. That it's just the percentage seems off to me from what was done when it was first passed, as far as what each department. If you could check that for me. When OLOS was first passed, I asked a question when I first came in about the fact of whatever that percentage was. I never really figured out what it was, how the monies were divided up the first time. It seems like it's different now.
Okay? I mean, I'll check prior year distribution percentages, and I can provide a.
I was just wondering, I mean, we had 136,000 to the police department, and sheriff department 80,000, and the marshal department 3,780. So it just seems.
Well, it is again directly proportional to the number
Okay.
of sworn officers.
I mean, I'm for all the public safety. I'm not knocking what was done. I'm just saying this just seems off to me.
Well, and just for those listening, and just so you'll know, it's something like this. The police department has a budget of about $35 million, and they have 498 sworn officers.
88.
488.
488.
Correct me if I say something wrong. I'm going on memory. The sheriff's office has a budget of $27 million, and they have close to 400 sworn officers. The marshal's office has a budget of 1.2 or 1.8. I'm talking to somebody.
Me? Oh, something along those lines.
1.2 million, and they have just under 20 sworn officers. And then, of course, fire EMS has a budget of roughly about 25 million, and they have close to 400 sworn personnel. So you can see the difference in the size of budget and the number of sworn people. And so just for those watching, it does look to be out of proportion, but those numbers will help, I hope, clarify why that is such.
Yeah, I'm in favor. Public safety knows that. I'm in favor of what the police department gets, what the sheriff department gets, the fire department, and the marshal. But just numbers, percentage-wise, just seem off. It's, I don't like to go on camera, on record to say this, but it just seems a little punitive at times, and I'm trying to figure out if it was done fairly, that's all.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, and certainly we'll have them pull the early years and share with you how that was done, maybe what formula was used, and what formula is used now, if any different.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So for the OLOS infrastructure, included in the budget is $1.4 million for roads and bridges, $400,000 for flood abatement and stormwater improvements, technology improvements of $1.5 million. We are in year 5 of 5 for our core switch upgrade. There's $250,000 for computer equipment. We're in year 4 for the finance HR system upgrade, And included in the budget is the Intergov upgrade of $300,000. This particular software impacts the engineering department, the planning department, inspections and codes, as well as the occupation tax business license department. There's $500,400 for facility improvements, as well as debt service of a little bit more than $6 million. We are also, again, in year 4 of 10 for our 800 megahertz system upgrade. For T-SPLOST discretionary, FY19's funding level is $2.5 million. And currently, the discretionary projects that have been approved by council are listed here. $1.2 million for the Boxwood Bridge replacement, for a little bit more than $400,000 for the Victory Drive improvements, resurfacing at $3.1 million, Salmon Road signal at $250,000, Linwood 6th Avenue Bridge at $500,000, the Benton Drive Bridge at $1.8 million, Double Churches parking at $234,463. Traffic calming included in the budget is $300,000. $1.6 million for the Reese Road Bridge at Cooper Creek. The Clarendon Bridge is $300,000. $700,000 for the MLK Trail. $300,000 for the Infantry Road and Trail M230 match. The Mott's Green M230 match at $200,000. Sidewalk ADA improvements at $200,000 and guardrail improvements at $200,000. These are all existing approved funded projects using T-SPLOST discretionary monies.
Over a period of years,
Over a
right?
period of years. Yes.
Quick question. What type of traffic calming are we doing now in that 300,000? Is it speed tables or what? Because we've been told different things, so.
Deputy City Manager Hodge advised that there will be a presentation at the work session on May 29th to discuss the traffic calming and what we're
I'm good with that, but I'm gonna need some type of answer today, because I got somebody watching that has been on my back for the last 6 months. They said, no more tables are being removed, traffic calming, she can't get out of her driveway. I need to know, it's been all over. I mean, not only because it's election time, but I've been asking this for a few years now, and I've had people put on a list, and then there's no list because we're not doing it anymore. So now if we go back to a list, I'm at the bottom of the list. So where are we?
So several years ago, the traffic calming program was eliminated from the budget because the personnel that was managing that program were deleted. So there were certain locations that had gone through the process and determined that traffic calming mechanisms were approved for those areas. We are having trouble with the speed bumps where they're coming up from the asphalt, and so the engineering department has been looking at alternative approaches to traffic calming, and there will be a presentation at the work session on different types of traffic calming that we can install in particular areas. That will review that on the 29th at the work session. But the speed bumps and the tables are just not staying in place for those locations, so we have had to remove some of them, but we will be coming back with some other options.
So,
One quick question. Once we get the budget together for this, will we be able to spread it among our districts so everybody gets something the first time around and we're not put back at the bottom of the list? Whatever you come up with?
Well, the list would have been those areas that had been evaluated. There's no putting anyone at the bottom. The list is still intact from when the program was in place. So those locations that had been evaluated, there isn't any changing of those on the list.
So if you've been waiting 3 years, it's 3 more years? I mean.
No, I mean, council will have to decide which mechanisms they are interested in putting in place based on the engineer's recommendation for a different location. But speed tables just don't seem to be a long-term.
Oh, yeah, I mean, whatever you come up with, it's been discussed, and I'm sure everybody up here has gone through it. We got speeding going on in all our districts.
Yes, sir.
And then the tables that were done in, I think, may have been Mayor Pro Tem's district. We saw them taken up after they had waited so long to get them down, then they were removed. So we're just trying to figure, I'm getting calls all the time trying to figure out what is it, can we do about it? And then I have conversations with other
Yeah.
counselors up here, and they're saying, well, it's kind of like a racetrack on certain streets, and
The engineering director and I had this conversation actually earlier today, so
Okay.
we are working on a presentation for council.
okay, thank you.
Councilor Woodson?
Yes, thank you. Just want to ask in the presentation we're going to get, can someone look at what Fort Benning is using? Because I was in a meeting, and again, the speeding situation, and they were telling me about the calming tracking that they have, that they've been using, and apparently it's been working. It's not coming off the ground. It's not a big old bump, but it's enough to slow you down. So I like for us to look at what they did, because if what they did is working, then why wouldn't we emulate what they're doing? So if you could please take that into consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
And the other question was, I know that we're looking at revitalizing South Lumpkin Road, and I didn't see this. Is that something we're going to bring back at mid-year budget, or is that included in anything of here that I didn't see?
These projects that are listed on here were approved in prior budgets. There will be a
Okay.
presentation during probably the May 15th budget review session on the recommendations for the projects for FY19. And we'll show the list of future projects that are also still on the list but aren't funded. So these have been already approved, and we'll provide FY19's projects at a future meeting.
So the future ones are for 19 then?
There'll be 19 and then the
then
projects that are
20.
still on the list.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilor Barnes?
Yeah, Councilor Woodson stole my thunder because you need to investigate, because the ones they have out of Fort Benning, with all the troops and all the trucks and whatever, they're enduring, so that's a very good idea to find out. And I think that, I know, I think in a couple of streets that in Evelyn's district, they've had to be removed, but the ones on Celia Drive, Rosewood, I went and checked them out because I was concerned. So it could be what we used, but Fort Benning's, with all the traffic, all the troops and whatever, so we need to investigate that.
Sure.
And going back to Reese Road, I want to thank you for what was done yesterday. It was something immediate. I'm sorry, can you hear me now? It was something immediate and right away, a preventive minutes. I know it was a discussion that we have the bridge coming and down the line by and by, but we needed something like you did, something I was saying needed to be done immediately to slow the traffic. I like the speed sign. I like the indication that it's a narrow bridge, and I like the barricades that bring people off that side that slopes down. So, Mr. City Manager, from the people, I've gotten a number of emails already in the mail, that was something immediate done for the safety of the citizens.
All right, if there are no further questions related to the FY19 recommended budget overview, I'd like to turn it over to our benefits consultant, Shaw Hankins, to provide a healthcare update.
Yep. Councilor Thomas?
Ms. Alexander, I want to be sure, I have had a number of our employees talk to me about watching this presentation to see what's in the budget. And I just want to be sure, Mr. Chair, that everybody understands that at this point, there is nothing in the budget. None of this has been approved at this point. And that's why we're going to be having these meetings for the next month, is to go through this and to approve it. So employees don't count it out or don't count on it until the end. There's nothing that has been approved. All of this is recommended at this point.
It's recommended or proposed, and we'll work through the legislative process and the add-delete process if there is any, and then we'll have the public hearings, and then council will vote after that point. So you're right. Thank you.
All right. So here's HR Director Rita Halliwell.
Good afternoon, Council. As we've done in the past several years, during this budget process, we presented the healthcare update, the proposal for the FY 2019 budget. So we've had several meetings with our benefit consultant and looking at our claims history and everything related to our healthcare fund. We've had an opportunity to then present some options, a proposal to our Employee Benefits Committee. They've had a chance to ask questions and provide feedback regarding the health care proposed for 2019. We've also had an opportunity to meet with the Council Healthcare Task Force regarding the proposal for FY 2019. The Employee Benefits Committee Chairperson is here this afternoon, Seth Brown. I've also asked the Employee Benefits Committee to watch this presentation today. Many of them, obviously, they are working and could not be here today. But our benefit consultant is here, and we'll go through details of the FY19 healthcare update for you, along with some recommendations for you to consider. And of course, we'll be available to respond to any questions. Our healthcare consultant, they'll introduce themselves. Tammy Starkey, she'll do the presentation. Scott, he's here. Scott Hankins is here, and Todd Hooper is here with Shaw Hankins, so they'll do the presentation now.
A couple more booklets, please. Ready?
Good afternoon. I'm Tammy Starkey. I'm Vice President of Consulting Services with Shaw Hankins. Today I'll go through an update on how the health plan is running overall, what cost drivers there are, and then also an update on the Health and Wellness Center, and then provide recommendations for the fiscal year 19 budget that impacts the 2019 plan year for the health insurance. So to begin with, we'll have the health plan overview. So here we're reviewing on slide 3 the annual medical claims. So looking back to 2013 through the end of 2017, the calendar year, which is the plan year for our health plan, how our claims have run. And so we see over the last 3 years, our medical claims have been very stable. You do see that reduction from 2014 to 2015. That was primarily driven by the removal of the Muskogee Manor Group from the plan. So there was a drop in the number of covered lives. We also had a decrease in our high claims. So the last 3 years have been very reflective of the population as it continues at this point. So from 2015 to 2016, we saw only a 1.8% increase in our costs for medical claims. From 2016 to 2017, less than 0.5% increase. So over the last 3 years, the trend of the plan has been 2.2%, so very stable overall. Our prescription drug claims, we have seen also have stabilized. In 2015 to 2016, we saw only a 1% increase. We did have a negotiated revised contract with the pharmacy benefit manager in 2016 that provided some discounting on the prescription drugs, and that was with Express Scripts at the time. And for 2017, we implemented a new pharmacy benefit manager, PharmaVale, and we saw a reduction in our expense with that move to PharmaVale. Overall claims dropped about 5.6%. Our average cost per prescription in 2017 was 39% less than it was in 2016. So just reflective of the reduced cost, reduced administrative fees that we see with PharmaVale. That's not reflective of any plan changes that year. We mirrored the plan from prior years. And then overall, when we look at medical and drug claims combined, we see still overall very stable, 1.5% increase from 15 to 16, and then a 1.7% decrease from 16 to 17. So very flat. We also like to look at the experience on a per employee per month basis so that we're averaging the claims to identify those changes in our enrollment and the population over time and try to bring it back to something that we can compare. So we do see from 2014 to 2015, although we had that reduction in lives, our average cost per employee did decrease 9.6%. We saw an increase from 2015 to 2016, a 3.2% average claims cost per employee, and then from 2016 to 2017, 2.5%. So this shows us that overall our claims have remained very flat, but we have seen a slight reduction in the number of employees on the plan. So that's part of what will drive a future projection of cost and how we fund the plan, because although our costs are remaining the same, we have fewer employees on the plan to fund that cost. As we look at our current budget tracking fiscal year 18, we provide the city with a monthly update on how our claims are running based on, compared to the claims projection that was provided for the fiscal year. So you'll see at this point we are reporting claims through February of the 2018. So at this point we're running a bit over budget, primarily due to 2 large claims that hit in December and directly impacted our fiscal year, but we're only about 5% over budget at this point in the fiscal year. No, I think it'll come back in line now. Those high claims heavily impacted the plan, but we expect to see that level out as we continue the contributions and the funding to the plan, and one of those high claims is not ongoing. So as we look at some of the cost drivers on the plan and where we have opportunities to improve, so although we have maintained our costs over the last 3 years have remained very stable, there are several areas of opportunity where we can improve our experience. One of those is in high-cost claimants. So again, I spoke of some high claims that impacted our 2017 plan year, which in turn impacted fiscal year 18 because they occurred within that time period. But you'll see for 2017, $5.4 million of our claimants were over $50,000. So that accounted for 45% of our overall medical claims in 2017. An average for an employer your size to see is about 30%. So that was an increase from where we have run in the past, where 2016 was 32% of our claims were high claimants, 2015 was 26% of our claims. I will note that I mentioned there were 2 claims that heavily impacted the plan. Our top 2 claims in 2017 accounted for almost $1.6 million of that. Some of the disease cost drivers that we review on an annual basis.
So I've got a question from Councilor Davis.
Yes.
While you're on the claims, and you're explaining it well, but a lot of times with our employees, sometimes they don't really understand this aspect of the claims per cost and how that all works, the balance there.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just touch on that more, and a little bit more in layman's terms, and what that at the end of the day, what that adds up to, so when employees looking at their cost for coverage, what that all means and how that relates?
Yeah, definitely, and that's a great point, that because the city is a self-funded health plan, that means that all of your claims are paid out of a pool that the city contributes 70% to, the employees contribute 30% to fund that pool. And so any claim that's incurred by a member that's covered under the plan is paid out of that fund. Blue Cross simply administers that for us, so they will pay the claims, but the city is funding the amount for the claim. So any members' actions, their health status, their choices, and the services that they receive or where they receive them are a directly reflection on the cost of the health plan. So when we talk about claims, that's the largest component of what is going into the cost of our health plan. We also have fixed costs for the administration of that plan through Blue Cross Blue Shield, but 90% of it is our claims expense. Okay. So looking at disease cost drivers in some areas where we definitely have opportunity for improvement, here we're comparing our costs to the norms of the benchmark surveys that are available. So we're looking at Kaiser Family Foundation, Truven Health. So these national surveys for other employers that are of the same size within the Southeast and our city and county governments. And so here we see that our costs for asthma and COPD are 541% above the norms. That has remained fairly consistent for the city to have a high expense there, where we're paying out $101,491 for those claims directly related to asthma and COPD. We feel that there is opportunity for improvement because the city has great initiatives around wellness, the tobacco cessation programs that are available that can impact COPD. Obesity levels, BMI, can also in turn have some impact on asthma. So there's room for improvement in that disease state.
Councilor Thomas?
Does any of that asthma COPD relate to the fact that we have a number of firefighters who are covered under this plan who may be more susceptible to asthma and COPD than the employees at TSIS, for example?
It could, but keep in mind that the benchmark is other city and county governments, that majority of those also have fire departments, so there's a good representation there of that same population.
And I'm wondering about preventive equipment. Are those kinds of things available to fire departments that we might need to be looking into that would be less expensive for us to make sure our firefighters have that kind of equipment rather than paying out for asthma and COPD problems? If we could reduce the number who have asthma and COPD by giving them equipment that is less expensive than the medical claims, that's where I'm trying to get to.
Right.
Are you aware of any of that, or?
I can't speak to the cost of that type of equipment, only to the cost of the claims that are associated with that condition. And normally when we focus on impacting the cost related to asthma and COPD, it is focusing on tobacco cessation, smoking cessation programs, obesity reduction in the workforce, and those types of things. But there is the potential there to impact that on the fire department.
And I do know that it used to be much more prevalent, I think, that firefighters suffered from these diseases than they do now, because we do have some of those equipment available to us. So I just curious about, but this, you said we're comparing apples to apples here for the most part.
For the most part, the majority of these other entities are going to also have firefighters included.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Also, an area where we are above the norms is in our costs for diabetes. So for medical claims, we paid $287,498 last year for medical claims. That's not prescription drugs, only the medical side, to treat 368 diabetic patients. So we have seen that increase year over year. Actually, from 2016 to 2017, that was a 110% increase in our costs related to diabetic care, and we're 115% above the norms there. So again, great opportunity through our wellness program, through utilizing the vehicle that we have with the Health and Wellness Center to see improvements on that and to help manage future patients from becoming diabetic. Also in heart disease cost, we're 102% above the benchmark, so 554 patients on the plan being treated for heart disease. Majority of those are employees on the plan. 425 of those patients are employees or pre-65 retirees in this analysis. So with that, we paid almost $300,000 and we're 102% above the benchmark data. The cost areas where we saw the greatest change over the last 2 years, some of these we saw increases from year to year, some we saw some reduction in the cost, but I will point out our obesity cost did increase 180%. So we had 223 patients in 2017 being treated for obesity. We did see some reductions in our costs for physical therapy, low back pain, arthritis, and depression. I will point out our depression costs show a decrease, but we're still well above the norms on that cost as well. And then the other area where we saw an increase was for our cancer cost, a 38% increase. That is 47% above the norms, but much of that was driven by one of those top claimants being a leukemia claim. And then looking at our medical claims as they relate to lifestyle behavior. So this is an analysis that Blue Cross Blue Shield provides where they are tying the claims expenditure for patients that can be directly or indirectly tied to different lifestyle behaviors. So you'll see for patients that are either overweight or obese, we have direct associated expenses of $1,176,000, indirect associated expenses of almost $408,000. So that costs the plan in 2017 almost $1.6 million in medical expenses related to patients being overweight or obese. How do they know that? They relate it to their condition. So if someone is diabetic, has high blood pressure, those types of things, and they're overweight, then they're going to say that that is a result of their BMI or their weight. An indirect expense may be that they've developed arthritis because of the additional weight, asthma, those types of things. Another area that would be very similar is lack of physical activity, about $1.1 million in claims expense there, and then tobacco use, about $1.1 million in claims expense related to tobacco use. So again, all of these are areas where we can see improvements with our members as we help them to improve their health and provide them with avenues to do that. So the Health and Wellness Center does provide the perfect vehicle for
See here, Councilor Huff.
There we go. I stepped out at you at the beginning, so I'm not sure if you covered that while I was out of the room. On the BMI piece, could you just touch on that for a minute on why it's important, why employees would be steered that direction as far as the cost of the plan on whether you participate or not, and then if you would, who was on the actual committee as far as representing the city in various departments?
I will. I have not gotten to that yet, but
Okay.
I will.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next we'll talk about an update on the Health and Wellness Center, and then I'll go into those recommendations that Councilor Huff referenced. So with our Health and Wellness Center, we have the opportunity to facilitate the wellness program to impact these areas, these cost drivers that we've identified, and in turn help stabilize the cost of the plan and future projections of that cost. So just looking at 2017 utilization of the Health and Wellness Center, for 2017, we had 1,393 actual members utilizing the Health and Wellness Center, so 949 of those are employees. So we have about 43% of employees that are enrolled on the health plan are utilizing the Health and Wellness Center. And on average, those employees attending the Health and Wellness Center are going 5.7 times a year. So it's not just one time, they're going back for continued care there. the types of visits that are being seen at the Health and Wellness Center, we see those are fairly well distributed between acute visits and chronic visits. We do have some preventive, and then some are the personal health assessment review that they schedule after they complete their biometric screening. So I think this is improvement in what we've seen over the last few years, where primarily in past years we saw acute care within the Health and Wellness Center. We want to see a shift more to preventive and chronic because, again, that does help us manage that patient's health, helps them manage their long-term cost and avoid them becoming a high-risk or high-cost participant on the plan. As far as our health assessments, if you remember, for 2017, we had an incentive for members to participate in the health assessment where they actually received a $500 credit towards their deductible to participate. In 2018, we changed that incentive to where employees would receive 2 additional paid days off, wellness days, if they participated in the health assessment. We saw no real change in participation, changing that incentive. We stayed about 17%. The prior year, we were 20%. So actually saw a slight reduction in overall participation with 455 participants taking the health risk assessment. And really, the health risk assessment is a biometric screening that'll analyze any of your risk factors from cholesterol, BMI, blood pressure, and then also a survey where you make some indications on your exercise habits, your eating habits, your stress levels, those types of things that'll provide you with an overall risk analysis, health analysis, and then you are able to either go into the Health and Wellness Center to review that with one of the providers. You receive video communication that reviews that for you, and you receive a book that outlines all of your scores, what's in range, what's out of range, and makes recommendations to help the patients there.
Councilor Thomas?
Would you go back to what is involved in participating in the health assessment? You do a survey, and is that an online survey?
It's online survey.
And who does that survey go to?
It goes to the CARE ATC, which is the vendor that facilitates the Health and Wellness Center.
It doesn't go through your boss?
No, none of the data is seen by the city, by Shaw Hankins. All we receive is aggregate data to identify areas of risk. There's no personal information shared.
Okay, so after I do the survey, then the next step is the biometric
Screening, so finger stick, blood draw.
And where does that happen?
So the last couple of years, we provided multiple on-site locations. And so really, as a department requests that we come on-site, then we facilitate that with the Health and Wellness Center vendor and bring their team on-site to have those biometric screenings done.
So we could say next Tuesday at 3 o'clock, they'll be on the plaza level of the government center and go do that?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And then where does that results go? Where does that?
Also to CARE ATC, the Health and Wellness Center vendor, and then that's shared with the patient only.
Okay, so once I do the survey, and once I do the biometric, whatever that is, and it's discovered that I have COPD, okay? Then what?
Then there will be an outreach from a member of the Health and Wellness Center to see if that participant would like to come into the Health and Wellness Center, participate in coaching, anything that they can help them to improve their condition.
And if I do the survey and I do the screening and nothing shows up, what happens?
They would receive their assessment of their scores, and they can still come in, sit down with a provider to review those if they'd like to. They may still have some areas they want to improve on, but otherwise there would not be an outreach unless they're high risk.
And none of this is shared with anyone except the patient?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Barnes?
I think we discussed this before at the committee meeting. You know, something like this here is a win-win for 2 reasons. Something like this here will cost you, if you out of pocket, close to $500 or $600.
Right.
So I guess what is always a question mark in my mind is if you have something, and let's just go from the perspective that this is geared to keep you healthy, to increase your longevity, to eliminate problems for you in the future. Now, that's one end. The other end, if the employees realize, this will also help to keep the costs down, so it's a win-win. But strictly from the perspective of health, I don't understand why more of our employees are not taking advantage of this gift. And it is a gift, because it will, on the other end of what Councilor Thomas was saying, there are many people who are living every day and don't realize that they may have a predisposition for something.
Right.
Like pre-diabetes, where they have no overt signs, and something like this will pick it up and be able to get you on a type of a regimen that will make you healthier.
Right.
So I know that Rita has done everything that she can to educate the employees on this gift, and it is a gift that they're presented with. And so I think you've tried everything that you can to try to have it be an incentive to the employees. I don't know, I think there's been, small groups, Rita? That you've even had small departmental education with it, so I just don't know what more that can be done, but I would like to let the employees know that something like this is a gift. I'm glad you brought up the HIPAA, that no one knows except you.
Right.
So that you don't have to be afraid that your employer might know it and something might occur, because it's strictly confidential.
It is.
And so you've done your excellent, what you can do to try, but maybe from a cost basis, but as we were discussing, might get everybody's attention, and they realize, if you don't want to think on the basis of the health, think on the basis of your cost that you have to put out your pocket.
Right, yeah. It'll definitely have an impact on both.
Sure.
And that's the goal. And where we start seeing it have an impact on the overall cost of the health plan is once you get, 80, 90% participation, because then you're reaching those patients that wouldn't go otherwise, don't know that they are pre-diabetic or have high blood pressure.
That's
because
exactly right.
those are things that they can be completely unaware of.
And the goal is for our employees to be healthy.
Yes.
I mean, that's really the goal, because this is something that we are doing for them. That they have to just realize that this is something that you need to take advantage of.
Right, yeah. It's a great benefit that the city provides.
Councilor Huff?
Okay, yeah, we were just having a sidebar. This is for the employees only or dependents also?
The spouses are also eligible. So we had 17 spouses participate so far.
Okay. The angle I want you to come from is for the ones that are listening. The employees, some employees are calling, asking, are they being penalized if they don't participate? And so if you could address cost of plan and increase in costs if you don't participate. That's
Yes.
my first question. I'll let you go ahead and answer.
Yes, so the proposal that I'll review is there's a credit, an incentive if you do participate. So you get to retain your healthcare cost at the current rates for 2019. You would see no increase. If you decide you do not want to participate in the wellness program, then they would see a 7.3% increase in their cost.
Okay.
And I have a chart in here that shows what that means on a biweekly basis.
Okay, and I don't know if you have that with you. Could you go over the people that were on the committee from the various departments?
Yes. Okay, so the options for
I'm sorry, we have one more question from Councilor Woodson.
I just want to piggyback. Why would it increase 7%? Because like in the company I work, they provide the survey, they provide it. And if you do it, it reduces your cost. If it doesn't, it stays the same. But you're saying if they don't do the survey or participate, their insurance will go up 7%.
Well, it actually is a reduction because the overall health plan funding requires a 7.7% increase for 2019. And so we are proposing that they receive a credit, and it will reduce that so that they have no increase if they participate in wellness. So it actually is a reduction from what is needed to fund the plan in 2019. And the difference, the 7.7 is if we do nothing, 7.3 are some prescription drug changes that I'll review.
So that I'm just going to put it a little bit different, so that everybody that's watching, our constituents that have concern is, our insurance is supposed to go up 7%.
It is, yes.
This year.
Yes.
And by offering that opportunity to do that, it will not increase it then by 7%.
That's correct. They avoid that increase.
Just wanted to make sure we understood it.
Yes. So it is not a penalty, it is a credit, where the funding required would be 7% increase. If we did nothing, then the city would increase 7%, the employees increase 7% in their contributions, but we're proposing a credit if employees participate in the wellness program so that they will not see that 7% increase.
And the participation is only what we just outlined. It's not going to the wellness clinic or any of that kind of.
Right.
You don't have to use the wellness clinic or anything.
No, you don't have
do
to
the
use it,
survey
just
and
the
the
survey.
Biometrics, right?
Right, yeah, so I'll define and go into detail of what participation means, but you're correct, that's just the survey and the biometric screening, and then coaching if you're high risk.
Just want to make it clear because it seems like there's miscommunication in the community. That's why we're so persistent in you
Right.
breaking it down evenly to kind of get the myth out of the, of the equation.
Okay, so
Okay.
I'll jump into that now, I'll come
yeah.
out of the Health and Wellness Center update, we'll go ahead and talk about the recommendations, because I know that's what.
Hold on, let's go back to the list. We never got to, yeah. So for the ones that have called me, I can put them in contact with one of these people to explain what happened in the meetings and how we got to this point.
So yes, each of these departments are represented by these members in the Employee Benefits Committee. So we presented 3 options, and I'll identify those options, but that wellness credit option is what was recommended by the Employee Benefits Committee.
Okay, and the committee was unanimous?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the options that were considered by the Employee Benefits Committee are outlined here. First was the wellness incentive with a few prescription drug changes. So this would mean that instead of the employees seeing that 7.3% increase in their contributions, if they decide to participate in the wellness program, they would receive no increase. If they do not want to participate in wellness, then they will see the increase that the plan is scheduled to have for 2019, the 7.3%. So that was the option recommended by the Employee Benefits Committee. The other option we reviewed was without the wellness incentive. If we made some plan changes, then that would be increasing the office visit copay by $10 on each plan. So primary care physician and specialist office copays would increase $10 in 2019, and also prescription drug changes. So that would reduce the overall increase to 6.1%. So making plan changes and an increase to employee contributions of 6.1% for option 2. And option 3 is if we don't make any plan changes, then it would be the 7.7% increase that is needed to fund the plan appropriately in 2019. So those were the 3 options that were reviewed. To define wellness participation, here we see step 1 is to complete your personal health assessment. That's the PHA that we referred to earlier. So that's completing the online health risk assessment survey and your biometric screening. And then step 2 would be if you're high risk, then you participate in coaching. Coaching is done normally once a month. A standard program is about 12 weeks, but if someone graduates earlier, then they're done with coaching. It could be as simple as, I have high cholesterol, I need to go on a medication, or high blood pressure, I can go on medication. So I'll speak with the coach. I can obtain that medication at no cost at the Health and Wellness Center if I choose to fill that prescription there, and then I can graduate from that program in the matter of a month. So it's not defined that it has to continue for 12 weeks. Coaching is also available through a video chat. So it's not required that an employee goes to the Health and Wellness Center for that coaching. They can do that telephonically or through a video chat. And then, so they must be enrolled if you're high risk in the program, attending your appointments, and someone is only disenrolled if they miss 2 consecutive appointments without calling to reschedule. So basically not showing up to 2 consecutive appointments. But as long as you're attending your appointments on a monthly basis and you're in compliance with the program, then you would continue to receive the wellness credit. This would apply to employees only, not spouses on the plan.
Counselor Davis has a question.
Are you finished with this part of it?
Yes.
Would you go back a little bit and let's talk about the increase in healthcare costs? And that, I'm assuming that's the increase in premiums, right?
It's an increase in the projected claims expense, and then there's fixed cost in there for the administrative fee.
So that's going to add up and factor into the increase in a premium, right?
In the funding that's needed, because the only premium on a self-funded plan is our fixed cost. The rest of it is our claims expense, which is variable, so it's a projection of what's needed to fund
Will be your
it.
cost for whatever plan you want to go into. So we talked a little while ago when I asked you about kind of putting things in layman's terms, and we were talking about claims. Does this directly, directly, the impact is directly based on the claims, or is this the overall market of, let's just say, at a national level or state level? Or what's the significance in the increase here in the cost of the insurance?
Right, definitely. So primarily what drives the projected increase is what we call medical trend. And so that's how actuaries compute what can we expect our claims today to cost us in the future. And you have to keep in mind that we're projecting claims that really through the end of 2017 all the way out to the end of 2019 that impact this budget, because we're setting our costs for 2019 plan year, which is 2019 calendar year. So medical trend is made up of just the overall increase in health care, higher cost drugs, higher cost treatments, but also takes into account an aging population, a deterioration in the health of that population. So those are things that an actuary is going to say, well, we just know right off the bat, if you don't do anything to try and impact and manage the cost of your health plan, it's going to increase by, standardly national surveys are about 10% right now. So CCG is beating that 10% trend because of the initiatives you already have in place with the Health and Wellness Center, with the prescription drug changes that you put in that are proactive. So you're not seeing that full increase. But our recommendation of the wellness plan is to further impact and bend that trend where we're not seeing national trends of 10%, 12% impacting the city's plan.
So you talked a little while ago, you said there was some cases that, cases that directly impacted from a claim perspective, that impacted the claims. Let's just say, I don't know, are you factoring going into the future, are you factoring in continued claims of such nature, or have you made those adjustments?
For the high-cost claimants, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yes, so based off of prognosis for those claims and what's projected for their future expense, that's taken into account as we make projections for 2019.
So that's already been factored into this?
It has, yes.
So let's just say that doesn't play out to your calculations, then what?
Then we look at potentially a surplus in the future year and no increase for 2020.
And that's potentially possible?
It is, depending on how claims run. And we report that on a monthly basis.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think the claims are going?
You know, I'm very confident in the projections that our actuary makes. To be within 5% at this point on a $23 million budget is a great feat, and we see that on all the cities and counties that we work with, that we're typically within 5% either way on projecting their budget for 23 months in the future. So, you know, we never know when we're going to have a $1 million claim hit. The city does not have any kind of stop-loss protection against that because it has not made sense financially to purchase that type of coverage, but something like that could skew our numbers.
Okay,
But that's why you look to build some surplus in the health plan to cover those types of unknown expense.
So what I'm hearing you say is, based on our claims, based on the projection of your claims, or the claims, and then where we're at with the employees' health care program, that right now it's tracking a lot better than the corporate sector, a lot better than state, and a lot better than national average.
Definitely is, yes.
Okay.
It is. And so we look to continue that through promotion of that wellness program because we have the opportunity there. We have the facility built for that. And so as we see participation in that program grow, we see further management of the cost.
So is it safe to say that based on what we just talked about, the logic that we just talked about, that the cost for health care is pretty good? The city's health care is pretty good related to other health care programs?
I would definitely agree with that. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. I did mention a couple of proposed changes to prescription drug benefits. So every year, we review the city's prescription drug claims, overall utilization, and we work with pharmacy consultants to make proactive recommendations on how can we further manage those costs based off of some outlier spending. So one is the recommendation to discontinue the coverage of inhaled nasal steroids, so drugs like Nasonex, because they are now available over the counter, same dosage level, and really the same cost to the members for filling those over the counter. And in the past, we have established that the city will not cover medications on the health plan that are available over the counter in the same dosage. That was put into place in 2018 with the proton pump inhibitors, the Nexiums, the Prilosec, that are also available over the counter now. So now that those have been established over the counter, that would impact 205 members by not filling it through the health plan, purchasing it directly over the counter, and would save the plan about $8,500 to discontinue that coverage and push it over the counter. The other recommendation is to add a patient pays difference cost on brand name medications when a generic is available, and even if dispense is written as indicated on that prescription. The reason for that is when we look at our average brand name cost of our drugs in 2017, average brand name drug cost was $682. Average generic cost was $44. So huge difference there. A lot of opportunity to incentivize patients to take a generic when a therapeutic equivalent is available. If the patient cannot take the generic version of that medication, they can work with our pharmacy benefit manager. Their physician can qualify that, no, they need to take the brand name version, and they will not have a cost difference. But otherwise, if a patient chooses brand name over generic when they have the opportunity to take generic, they are going to pay the cost difference. So if the brand name is $100, the generic's $20, they're going to pay that $80 cost difference to take the brand name drug. So really that keeps the health plan neutral on the cost of that medication. They're going to pay the same cost for generic if you choose the name brand. So that would impact only 28 members that are currently taking name brand medications when a generic alternative is available, but it would have an annual savings of about $71,000.
Councilor Thomas?
So are doctors continuing to write prescriptions for inhaled nasal steroids?
They can, yes.
But we're saying that because Flonase and
Nasonex
and all are available over the counter, even if your doctor writes a prescription, the plan is not going to pay for
The
it.
plan would not cover it. You would need to purchase it over the counter.
Okay. And then on the dispenses written prescriptions, if I'm one of those that I believe my doctor has said I need the brand name, what do I do? Who do I go to? Who do I call to say how do we take care of this?
Right, so if this plan change is implemented January 1st, these members will receive a communication well before that date.
These 28?
These 28 members that are impacted will receive a communication from PharmaVale, our pharmacy benefit manager, indicating there's a change in their costs. They'll also receive a phone call. And so well before that change goes into effect, they have the opportunity to speak with PharmaVale about the opportunity to stay on the brand name drug, and PharmaVale can contact their physician for documentation to indicate, yes, they need the brand name version of the medication. And then they would pay no additional cost.
Is there someone, I mean, if it were me, I'd pick up the phone and call Rita Halliwell because I know her.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that she's involved in this somehow or another. Is there someone that's available like that, Ms. Halliwell, that if an employee feels like they need to talk to somebody locally, they can do that?
Councilor Thomas, over the last 2 to 3 years, we've done a real good job at encouraging employees to call our benefit consultant hotline, and they've done that. We do a real good job. All they need to do, we pass out business cards all the time, because I really don't want to know the employee's medical information. So to keep me from knowing the employee's medical information, I'm going to encourage them to call the benefits hotline. It's a secure line, it's confidential, they can tell them all about their medical issues, and that customer service rep will be an advocate on their part in helping them get the information that they need, resolve the issue of whether they need the prescription or the generic would work for them, be the conduit or be that third party working with their provider to make sure that they get what they need. So that's what we primarily do. We do not want to know the employee's medical information, so we make sure, and the employees have been doing really good about, they can either call the toll-free number, they can also email them. They can sit at their desk right from home, call customerservice.com. I don't know what the email address is right now, but they can email it or call, and they'll get their issue resolved.
And we regularly publish this to our employees saying, here's how you get to it.
Yes. If we talk to their managers about it, the managers and supervisors, we have business cards on hand. I keep them with me everywhere I go because I'm handing them out to employees. Also on our website, the information is located there to call customer service.
And if I may, I'd like to go back to the wellness participation for just a minute. Why should I do this if I go to my doctor all the time anyway? Why should I do this?
So if a participant has the same screening at their annual physical and it's recent information, they can have their physician complete that form, and they don't have to have the biometric screening with the Health and Wellness Center team. So any member, any employee can receive the same evaluation from their physician if they choose to do so.
And by doing that, then I don't pay the 7%.
Right, so doing that, and if you're high risk, then there would be that requirement of coaching that would be facilitated through the coach at the wellness coach at the Health and Wellness Center, or telephonically or video chat.
And they will work with my private doctor?
They'll receive that data from the private doctor, so the physician will report your height, weight, blood pressure, cholesterol, everything.
No, not weight.
I know, that's the part we want to leave off.
I lost 40 pounds, okay?
Well, congratulations, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, and slide 27 is just an indication for the active employees what the cost difference would be. So again, you can see if you participate in the Health and Wellness Center, you do not receive an increase, so you're actually getting the wellness credit by participating in the wellness plan, so you'll receive no cost increase for 2019. If you do not participate in wellness, then you do receive the 7.3% increase. So you'll see on the silver plan, single coverage, that's a $5.35 increase per patient. pay period. There's 895 employees that participate with that level of coverage, so that's the highest enrollment on our health plan. Family coverage, if the employee does not participate, you see an increase of $14.82 per pay period. 243 employees currently participate with that level of coverage. If you're on the gold plan, single coverage would increase by $7.67, family by $21.23. And then for the pre-65 retirees on the health plan, they do have the same opportunity to receive the wellness credit. You will see a higher increase here for any dependent tiers because the city had established that there would be a reduction in the contribution towards dependents on the retiree plan. So that will move from the current 20% contribution by the city for 2018 to 10% in 2019. So that accounts for that difference there with the pre-decided reduction in the city's contribution for those dependents.
Good, okay. I just want to personally say thank you. We all have been traveling during the weekend at conferences and things, and I got a chance to see you earlier. So thank you for the time you put into this and for the attention to detail. I had a couple of questions, and you did include it.
Well, thank you, yes.
So I can go back and talk to the employee base and get with them and get the questions answered and then steer them to the committee. So we now have the committee members and everything, which I'm sure our staff had, but it's just nice to have it ready and available here. So thank you so much, and wish you all safe travels.
Thank you.
Barnes?
I want to go back to Judy's question about going through your physician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they can do the whole biometric, talking about the questionnaire.
They can, yes.
Now, what about the blood work?
The blood work, they can do that through their physician as well.
And they could get that through their physician?
They can, if they choose to do so.
With no cost?
It would be covered like an annual preventive screening.
That is the problem, because that's what's going to cost them. I'm just trying to highlight the benefit to the employees that something like this here, and 9 times out of 10, if they ask that, it may or may not get approved.
Right.
And then if it does get approved, that's coming out of the employee. The employee's going to have to pay that.
Yeah.
See, that's the difference. And I just wanted to highlight that.
Yes, that's a great point.
That's why going through this is, the reason that this bothers me is because being a healthcare professional interested in people's health, this is a gift. Because I know if they go through their physician, it may or may not be approved when the physician sends it off. And if it is, that's coming out of the employee's pocket. Everything's governed. And so that's why going through the health, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And I just wish more of the employees would take advantage of this just from a health perspective. Because I do know, just from experience, that there are many people going around and they have predispositions to conditions that they're completely unaware of.
Right.
And something like this would define it. And then on top of that, what I really like about this is the coaching. Because a lot of people, there's a change in lifestyle. It's not only medication, but it may elicit a change in lifestyle, and a coach is beneficial because someone that you can help change. Changing lifestyle isn't easy. Okay, I love sweets out the max. You understand? I know, and I'm a nurse. And so even me, when I go to the store and I look at that pound cake, and I look over there at the fruit, I know I need to change. So a coach helps an individual. So I'm going back and forth with Rita, and she's done everything. I just can't emphasize to the employees what a huge benefit. Going to the doctor, they fill out the questionnaire, but guess what? If it comes back approved and they get it done, they're going to see $500 or $600 bill easily.
Right.
That's on the low end
Yeah.
of something like this, of the blood work and stuff that's done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just wanted to clarify that the doctor will fill out the questionnaire, but if it is approved, that money's going to come out of the employee.
yeah, there's likely a charge for that, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is, and while we got you here, so you don't have to come back.
Sure.
This is election year, okay? So, and I've already heard some of the things that's being said out there. There's a lot of false information, a lot of misconceptions circulating out
Right.
there. But you guys, while we got you here, just for the sake of the employees and the viewing public, why don't you tell them exactly what you do and what you're doing on an everyday basis, and then how you deal with whether it's the administrator or the plan administrator or others, and how you're dealing with that. And, and I would like to ask you a question. Have you been doing a lot of negotiating lately on behalf of the city of Columbus?
Yeah.
I would like to know that, because these are things that, these are concerns out there that I just think from a misconception standpoint, people don't understand that being so I guess you can call it somewhat of a modified group plan, but it's really a self-insured plan. That it's the employee's health care plan. The city just
Right.
contributes and all. But tell us a little bit what you do on
Yeah.
behalf of the employees of consolidated government.
Yeah, so our role as consultant is first to manage the cost of the health plan and to retain those benefits for the employees. So not depreciating the value of that coverage and managing their costs so that they don't see increases on an annual basis. So to do that, we are negotiating on their behalf with the providers. So we market the benefits every year with the different carriers that are available within the market. So we're looking at the services that they can provide and also the network that they can provide. And on the health plan, the network is huge in not only making sure that we have adequate coverage of the hospitals and the providers that your members want to utilize, but also in evaluating which networks have the best discounts on claims, because that is a huge impact on our overall expense of the health plan. So to do that, we evaluate the network discounts of each of the networks within the area. So we're looking at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, all of the players that have a network developed in the area, and determining who has the best negotiated discounts for the providers and the services that our members are utilizing. So we take actual claims. This is what we paid out in claims over the last 12 months, the individual service, what we paid for them, and identify what would those same claims cost us in each of these other networks. So we have justified that Blue Cross Blue Shield has the strongest discounts in the area. They're normally about 56, 57%. So that's huge in managing the cost of your claims. So that's part of what we do in overall negotiations and identifying the best partners for your health plan. Also marketing the other benefits, life insurance, dental, vision insurance, to ensure that we have the best coverage available and at the lowest price possible. And then in addition to the consulting side and managing the cost, we're also assisting the employees with the overall administration of the plan. So we provide an online enrollment technology where employees can make their elections online, receive their education online. We also provide on-site enrollment support. So if someone's not comfortable going online to make their own elections, they can sit one-on-one with a salaried enrollment counselor. So that means that counselor does not get paid based on what they enroll in. They're simply there to educate that employee and assist them in making their elections of their benefits. We also provide detailed communication of the benefits. So we're providing benefit guides every year. We provide a website, a benefit resource website. We provide detailed videos on each of the benefit offerings. So goes through and identifies what are my health plan choices, what are my dental plan choices, and reviews those. And those are useful at open enrollment and for new hires. And then Rita mentioned our advocacy team. So we do have that service center that's available for employees to contact if they have any questions about their benefits. They need someone to help them identify how to best utilize their benefits, or in-network providers, or a claims question. So it could be, we get often, hey, I got this bill from my doctor. Should my insurance have paid this? Tell me, was this paid appropriately? What should my portion be? And so we work on their behalf with the insurance carrier and with the provider to make sure that that claim is paid appropriately and they're not being overcharged for anything.
So Shaw Hankins is you're a consulting firm. An independent
Consulting and brokerage
consulting
firm, yes.
I want to make sure I say this right so it's accurate. You don't have any direct ties to the insurance companies outside of negotiating or anything like that. You work primarily for the citizens, but speak to the point of being an independent consulting firm that works on behalf of the employees of this government.
Yes, definitely. We work for the city's employees, and that is our job, to ensure that we're maintaining the benefits for the city employees. So we are neutral to what carriers are selected. There's no additional compensation over one carrier or the other. So it is just flat administrative costs that we receive. So there's no incentive or beneficial relationship for us with one carrier or vendor over another.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Budget Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Davis. Good information. Councilor Woodson?
Yes, Ms. Holloway, do you have this information that she spoke about? Let's say if we had an employee that, and it's for the same reason, we're hearing all kinds of things. So if we had an employee that felt, or an organization that felt that we were not comparing, with other companies, insurance company, is there something available that they can see the comparison that we did? Could they call you and say, well, I want to see who, I know this company, like for instance, what's an insurance company? Anthem. Let's say if they say, okay, because we heard this, okay, we're always Blue Cross Blue Shield, always. And we said it's in a bid process, and they provide the best cost, the best benefit for our money. But if someone wanted to see the comparison of Anthem's and Blue Cross Blue Shield, could you provide that to them?
Yes, the consultant can provide that, absolutely. And we've had them do that before when they go out to bid for our medical insurance. If they're looking at Aetna, Blue Cross, United Healthcare, Cigna, we can see exactly what Cigna bid versus what Blue Cross bid versus what United Healthcare bid, and they will provide that information. The city is not actually vetting it. Our consultant is vetting it on our behalf. But yes, we can see exactly, what Blue Cross bid, what United, and we've seen those data. So we're not just taking Shaw Hankins' word for it. We're saying, show us what the United Healthcare bid, what did Cigna, yes.
So in saying that, just to make it clear, anyone in the public can come and ask, any employee, let's say any
We can present it
employee
here.
can come and
We can,
present it.
yes, when the consultant goes out and does the bid, ask them bring it back, and we can present it here to council so the public can see it, yes.
Let's do that. So
Absolutely.
that way it could be video.
Yes.
And it could be shown a couple times a week.
Sure.
And then also people can download it if they wanted to, so that they can see we're transparency.
Absolutely.
Very clear, because that is a question that keeps coming up over and over and over again while we're out in the community. So I think it's very important we just go ahead and take care of that, and that the myths will disappear then.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilor Thomas?
Ms. Halliwell, Ms. Halliwell, I want to be sure that I am explaining this relationship correctly. The city pays all of the claims, with the city paying 70% and the employee paying 30%. To determine which claims we pay, we have a consultant who works with us to help us design the program. They help us select, for example, the network that we're going to use, the doctor's network that we're going to use. They help us say, we are no longer going to pay for this drug because it's over the counter. And then once that decision, those decisions are made, Blue Cross writes the check to the doctor's office. Blue Cross does not insure the employee.
Correct.
The employee is insured by the City of Columbus, self-insured program. So what we would be asking Blue Cross in an RFP is, how will you provide us the administration piece of this? not the insurance piece of this, but the administrative piece of this, so that when I go to the doctor and my bill is submitted, Shaw Hankins has helped to decide the network, what they're going to pay. Blue Cross just writes that check.
That's correct. That's correct. I think the only exception, I would say, the network is provided by the carrier themselves. And that's how part of the bidding process is. The network of providers that Blue Cross provides, or the network of providers that Aetna or Cigna provides, that's within their network. Shaw Hankins is not necessarily determined.
Okay.
That network is provided by the provider, the carrier, but we are making a selection or a decision based on what their network looks like.
But the difference between our insurance program and a smaller company program, they work directly with Blue Cross to make some of the decisions that Shaw Hankins is helping us to make. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is, as Councilor Woodson has said, this has been quite a discussion, and there have been people who have been saying out there that Blue Cross has been insuring the city employees for the last 34 years, and that's not accurate, at least at this point in time.
Right, yeah. So to your point, Councilor Thomas, they provide administrative services only, and we pay them only for that. So we pay a flat fee for them to process the claims and to provide the network. We have to have someone provide the network because of the substantial discounts that are available. So as we make a comparison of market, we're looking at the difference in fixed costs for the administrative service of paying the claims. But again, that's a very small portion of the cost of the overall health plan. The bigger part is looking at what is the value of their discounts and how's that going to impact the claims on the plan.
Thank you.
And if I could add, just one point of clarification. We do pay Blue Cross and Blue Shield on a weekly basis for the claims as well as the administrative fee. So they do front the bill for the claims, we reimburse them for the claims every week.
But it's sort of like they're taken out of our bank account.
That's right. We
For-
pay them every
for those
week.
claims.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we typically pre-fund to a certain extent, because you'd have to, or they wouldn't have anything to draw from.
Yeah.
No, it's on a reimbursement basis.
Okay.
that
But
we
even
pay
the
Blue
piece
Cross.
that Blue Cross handles, we bid their, I mean, don't you check other third-party administrator companies as well?
Yes, we look at
So-
all other third-party administrators to compare fixed costs, to manage the, paying the claims, and the comparison of the network.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe Councilor Woodson.
I just want to, we were having a side conversation based on what we've been hearing in the community. And I just wanted staff or somebody to kind of say something like in the fact that Councilor Baker said to me, someone can come back and say, well, why are we having Blue Cross write a check when we have, our payroll that can write a check? And so he's already explained it to me, but people are watching. And these are questions
Yeah.
that I'm assuming, I'm trying to be proactive in the sense that they'll come back and say, well, if all they're doing is writing a check, why isn't
Well,
HR writing checks? So I need you to explain
Yes.
the complexity of that
It-
and why we have administrator.
yeah,
with Blue
so
Cross Blue
it
Shield.
is complex. It, would one be a huge administrative expense for the city to try to develop that type of service, but also there's the HIPAA concern, because we spoke earlier about not sharing personal claims information and the city not being privy to that type of information. So if we did look at that route, then the city is going to see every claim that you file, medical claim, pharmacy pharmacy claim for each member on the plan. So that would definitely be a concern. But the bigger concern would be that we lose those network discounts because Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, you can imagine that they have huge leverage to negotiate with these providers, with these hospitals, these doctors, to reduce their billed charges. And so I indicated earlier that average discounts with Blue Cross are 56, 60%. So we would lose 56% discount on our claims by just trying to directly pay those claims. So that's a big part of why we partner with a carrier, a third-party administrator, is for the value of those network discounts. And you see that in the negotiations that went on with Piedmont, between Blue Cross Blue Shield and Piedmont, that's exactly what they're doing, is trying to get the best deal for their members on the plan, where Piedmont wants to increase at this level, Blue Cross is going to negotiate with them at this level, causes some disruption, but in the end, anyone that participates in those Blue Cross network benefits from that agreement being negotiated on their behalf. And that was resolved. Piedmont is back in network, and that will be retroactive for any members that utilize Piedmont facilities.
And I just want to be proactive and get it out there. Since
And-
we asked for it to be, and I would ask too that when we do the presentation, we mention that also again, because we need to have our taxpayers understand the complexity of it. It isn't that you just write a check and that's the end of the story. It's more complex like that. Like she's saying now, there's a lot of cost saving that's coming along with it. If we wrote that check, it wouldn't work. Another thing that I want you to bring back is several times we heard, well, why don't we stop being self-insured? So I think it's important that you come back when you do the presentation and show the difference between us not being self-insured and a private company taking over. And I don't know if you can answer, I don't think we want to stay here that long to do it, but since we're going to do that presentation, I would appreciate if you bring that too. And the questions you're hearing among all of us is what we're hearing right now in the community. And at times we can't answer it because we don't know all the hits and buts about it.
Right.
But with you being here today, you explaining it, we have a better understanding now, but it also gives an understanding to our taxpayers that are watching, that will download it, will get a better understanding.
Right, definitely.
And that's the reason why we asked about the committee too. That Bruce asked about the committee is because we were told in several areas that there's not employee participation. And with you showing that, it does show. Now, is the person that's being part of being participating, are they taking it back to the rest of the employees? That is my question and concern.
Councilor Woodson, the Employee Benefits Committee came into being in 2012. It was a question, it came from City Council. In fact, I think it was Councilor Allen who requested this Employee Benefits Committee, which came into being in 2012. It's made up of city employees that actually have the health insurance. And these committee members, they are actually, they've been nominated by their peers, but their final selection is brought here to council and you actually approve them. In fact, there is a vacancy on the Employee Benefits Committee right now.
Well, I got somebody for you.
So if the council member has someone that they would like to have on the committee, please let us know. And let me just say this about the Employee Benefits Committee. They are very engaged. They are very proactive. They are very concerned about what happens with the city's health benefits. And they do take it back. We've got representatives from the police department, from the fire and EMS department, from the public works department, from our WIA, JTPA area. So we've got good representation, but again, we've got one vacancy.
Well, I got somebody for your vacancy.
And somebody that you think is going to take it back, because that's exactly, and Seth Brown, who was here and listened through the presentation, Seth is my ears a lot. I can't see all the employees. If something's going on, Seth is going to call me and say, hey, you know they're talking about this. Y'all need to say something about it. So
Okay.
we're getting feedback from the employees, and we want to continue to receive that feedback. I mean, just as we said, it's self-insured, and the employees have a lot of control of these costs, so we want them to have some say about what happens with the plan.
Well, thank you. After we finish here, I'm going to provide you with a name that I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that my colleagues will all agree upon to ensure that the message that you provide during the committee will get to the people that really need to hear it. Someone that can be good communicator between both parties.
Absolutely.
So just don't let me forget, because I have senior moments. So don't let me forget, because I have a name for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And, Mr. Chairman, if I may just say that the question that Councilor Thomas asked earlier about employees calling someone in HR, and then the question that Councilor Woodson asked about why we can't just be our own administrator, I just want to say are good questions to, and I like the responses, because we often hear employees question, the Health and Wellness Center, whether we know about their information and whether we're going to use it and so forth. And the response that you got from the HR director demonstrated that we don't want to know. To your question, if they call us HR, then you'd have to tell them what's going on so that they can help you facilitate your way through it. And you got the response that we want them to call the 1-800 number so that we don't have to know about anything going on. And with the question from Councilor Woodson, you got the response that that we don't want to know. And so I just want the employees to hear that we don't want to know and we don't know. And because some, you hear that they express concerns that I don't want you to know my health situation. And so I just wanted to make that point, just to say that that demonstrates that we don't know and we don't want to know, and that's why we do it the way we do it. Oh, absolutely. We care about them, but we don't want to know your specific situation.
So, Mr. Chairman, the department presentation that we had scheduled today has actually been rescheduled for next week. So thankfully for us, we can wrap this up now. I just wanted to make mention of the schedule for next week's meeting, May 8th. Tuesday, May 8th, we will start the budget review sessions immediately following the council meeting or at 1 p.m. If council ends before that time frame.
I think Councilor Davis had one follow-up question.
I do. I see our internal auditor is here with us today. I'd like to ask Mr. Redmond if he would come up. I'm not going to put you on the spot, so don't worry. When's the last time we did an audit on the Health and Wellness Center?
A full audit has probably been about 2.5, 3 years. Now, we continue to monitor the comment cards from our employees and their family members that use the center, and we're having excellent responses. I'll be happy to do one if you like.
Well, I think it's about time. I think this council has always been concerned since the inception of the Health and Wellness Center. I mean, the whole purpose of creating, I guess, this service facility is because we were concerned about rising health care costs. We wanted to keep costs down for the employees, for their benefit. And I think we all are concerned about return on the investment. There it is, an investment. Return on investment. I think we've always asked those questions over the years. I think it's about time that we continue to relook at it. I think you do it do it periodically, and just whether it's just for the sake of the taxpayers, that they can see the advantages, the benefits, that they can see them, tangibly see them. I personally would like you to maybe focus a little on the level of service. I do talk to employees here and there that have concerns. They express concerns of whether entering into the program. I know there's an option that's on the table about entering into the program, or maybe experiences in the past, but I think you're capable of doing an independent study on that, and just maybe, I don't know how you would do it, maybe through interviews or whatever, but just getting some general feedback or whatever, and to put in a report to us, so we can, I think it's up to us from a diligence standpoint is to make sure that they are getting the level of service, that the employees are getting the level of service that, number one, they're paying for, the city's contributing as well. But I'd like to ask you to do that. How long would it take you to put something like that together?
Councilor Davis, probably a couple of months. I would say we could do a pretty good assessment of it. I think some of the information that was presented today by the Shaw-Hankins representatives indicates that our claims have leveled out considerably from where they were back at the time even that we began the Health and Wellness Center. And that was what it was, part of what it was designed to do, but I think it's always good to confirm that it's working, or that it could do something more or better or serve more of our employees and their family members. And those things are certainly legitimate. We also want to know the level of service and whether or not they're getting everything that they need or can get there to save money. But certainly, I would have to say, just looking at the numbers today, we have turned the corner from where we were seeing 15-20% rate increases back in, the 2010 to 2013 time frame. And this is part of what it was designed to do. But a lot of it is some of the other work they've done. They changed the pharmacy benefit manager to Farmville. There's some other things that have caused claims to be reduced. Yes, we had a couple of very large claims this past year that impacted us, but we could have 6 of them next year, or we could have 0 for the next 3 years. That's the luck of the draw. But the more you can do to get people engaged in their own health care and get them involved, particularly if they've got high risk, with a coach and with somebody that's working with them on a regular basis in the provider community, the better chance you have of continuing to reduce that cost and pull that trend down and keeping it below the national average. Because that's been a big problem for you guys with the budgets over the last few years, is that by the time you funded the health care cost, and particularly when we were also faced with the refunding and building up funding in the pension program, you didn't have a whole lot of money to do anything with once you got done with those things. So if we can keep this on a level keel, as we're now seeing it more so, then I think you got a better opportunity to do a better job of funding other proposals and activities and equipment for the city.
What do we need to do? Do we need to just make a recommendation? And
Take a vote if you want to do it.
Mayor, can we just make a recommendation to get an update on it? It's basically an update, doing a cost-benefit analysis and looking at the level of service, giving us a report somewhere. I know you got your plate full, but I think everybody knows that there'll be a change in the administration coming soon, so I think it'd be appropriate time to go ahead and have that on file, have that on record.
We can put it on the mayor's agenda for next Tuesday, Julie?
Is that, he said
Then you
it'd
can
take a
vote
couple
on it.
months, didn't he?
This is not an official council meeting, it's a budget session.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Because it'd take a
It's
vote.
done at a regular council meeting.
Okay.
And I don't know how deep your engagement list is, but it would have to, it'd have to just go on the end of the engagement
Yeah.
list that he's already got.
Everybody okay with that? That's good, Mayor.
Thank you, John. Let's see, any other questions before I'll turn it back to you, Madam Finance Director.
I'm
Any
done.
closing comments?
No, sir.
Fine. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on Tuesday. What time?
It's immediately following the council meeting, or 1 p.m. if council ends before 1.
Thank you. We adjourn.